I travel from one world to another doing wholesale sales, and you call this the end of the world? This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326 Spider-Man. After coming out of the mecha hangar, Su-Wei went straight to the medical department. It seemed that the mystery had to be solved from those strange corpses. As for the strange stone, it was left in the weapons department, led by Fang Yunzi for observation and research. When Su-Wei came to the medical department, he was told that Mr. Qin was still in the dissection room. Without saying a word, Su-Wei also changed his clothes and entered the dissection room. In the dissection room, Mr. Qin was dissecting the second corpse with the help of several assistants. Seeing Su-Wei coming in, Mr. Qin just gave a wait-and-see look, and then continued to devote himself to his work. Su-Wei stood aside. The sound of the scalpel cutting through the tissue, the sound of body fluids being squeezed, and the sound of organs being pulled. Well, Su-Wei was overwhelmed by it. This is completely different from fighting on the battlefield. Even Su-Wei, who has been on the battlefield for a long time, felt a little uncomfortable watching it. Fortunately, at this time, Mr. Qin put down the knife in his hand, wiped it briefly, took off his gloves, and walked towards Su-Wei. There was also a stronger smell of blood. Mr. Qin, what did you find? Su-Wei asked hurriedly. Boss, they should be the products of humans whose gene sequences were maliciously tampered with. From the perspective of various organs and physical signs, they can only be considered half-human. They are evolving towards a new life form. However, the evolution is not complete, and the brain has also suffered irreversible damage. Based on my experience, these guys' intelligence should not be too high. In addition, interestingly, I found a familiar element in their blood. Seeing you reminded me of it. It's the red potion you brought last time. It also contains the same unknown element. Mr. Qin told Su-Wei what he found. At first, he thought it was a new species, but it turned out to be a mutated human, which made Mr. Qin a little disappointed. However, such a novel mutation is the first time. It is worth studying. Unfortunately, the cells of the three corpses have completely died, and it is impossible to conduct further research. Leaving the medical department, Su-Wei had a guess in his mind. Judging from the fact that the blood contains the same ingredients as the Devil's Blood potion, these mutants should also come from the U.S. genetic laboratory. And this unprecedented armor should be stimulated by the HX-1 power armor, and the U.S. rush to launch a product. If the HX-1 power armor had not appeared, the combat effectiveness of the skulls would indeed be remarkable, and even surpass the main battle tanks because of the strength of the mutants. Once formed, the skull army would be enough to dominate the world. As for the weird stone, it seems that it can't be called a stone. No matter, let's call it that. I don't know what it is for the time being. But Qin Lao said that these guys are not very intelligent, so maybe this is the role of the weird stone? Brother, just as Su-Wei was walking and thinking, Yuna's cheerful voice came from behind. As soon as Su-Wei turned around, he was hit in the arms. He hurriedly reached out to hug her. Yuna immediately turned into a koala and hung on Su-Wei's neck. Why are you alone? Where are Sister Song and Xiaoling? Su-Wei looked up and asked casually. Sister Song is in the office. Sister Xiaoling is on a mission. Yuna answered with narrowed eyes. Oh, Su-Wei nodded. Brother, let's go. I'll show you something good. At this time, Yuna suddenly jumped down, took Su-Wei's hand and ran towards the villa. What good thing? Su-Wei asked curiously. You'll know when you see it. Yuna smiled and made a riddle. Oh, Su-Wei had to shut his mouth. Last time it was the force field shield and the death grip. What will it be this time? It's really exciting. In a blink of an eye, the two came to the villa where they lived. Of course, there was no one else in it. Yuna pressed Su-Wei to sit on the sofa in the living room, and ran into her bedroom. But she came out soon. Brother, look, as she said that, she stretched out her little hand, and in her palm there was a ball of cloth-like object with a red background and black stripes. Oh, this is... Su-Wei was too embarrassed to take it with his hands. It looked like a girl's underwear. This is clothes made of red fire ghost spider silk. I won't be afraid of my clothes being burned anymore. So happy, Yuna said with a smile. Are you sure this is clothes, not pants? Su-Wei was surprised. It was a ball of cloth as big as a fist, and it was just Yuna's small fist. No matter how thin it was, it couldn't be. Bah, bad brother, what are you thinking about? This is really clothes, and it's one piece. The silk of the red fire ghost spider is super tough, and the clothes made of it are also super elastic. Yuna's face turned red. Is she the kind of person who cares about her butt and not her head? One-piece suit, slurp gulp. I don't believe it. Suwei's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard it, but he said he didn't believe it. Huh? Stinky brother, if you don't believe it, I'll wear it for you to see. Yuna's face turned red. I don't know if she was angry or embarrassed. Okay, Ziona, just kidding. Why take it seriously? If you really can't wear it, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Suwei persuaded hurriedly. HMPH. You wait. Yuna rushed back to her room after saying that. I'm looking forward to it. Suwei, who was sitting on the sofa, looked at Yuna's closed door and immediately showed a lewd smile. After a while, Yuna walked out of the room. Oh my. Spider-Man. Puff. Suwei's nosebleed immediately flowed out. That's right, one piece, Spider-Man style, with bumps and curves. As Yuna turned into a flame, the clothes also turned into flames, and the two merged into one. Then, Yuna turned into her real body again, and the clothes were well worn on her body, just like an extra layer of red and mesh skin. Not only is it super elastic, but it is also soft and silky. This is simply tailor-made for Yuna's elemental body. Fortunately, Yuna is a girl. Extremely pleasing to the eye. If it were a boy, damn. Extremely hot. Oh, it was not until the evening that Suwei left the villa. There was no doubt that someone was absent during dinner. After dinner, Suwei went to the mecha hangar again. The upgrade progress of the Black Phoenix has reached more than 80%. The most important body has been upgraded and forged with a new super alloy, which is very strong. Now the system is still being improved. Seeing Suwei, Ji Tongguang took the opportunity to collect some of Suwei's physical data so that it can be better implanted into the operating system. Chapter 327 Upgrade. The next day, Suwei left the Phaeton base with a full harvest and disappeared in the vast wilderness. At Fang Yunzi's suggestion, Suwei selected two offensive and defensive weapons for Xinghu weapons. The first one is an electromagnetic railgun called the Giant Bow. The drawings and processes come from the database of the Phoenix Nest base. It has been copied by the Phaeton base and equipped on the three-ring wall as a supplementary firepower for the laser cannon. The combat radius is 5 kilometers, and the equivalent of 800 millimeters armor can be ignored within 3 kilometers. In other words, it can penetrate the front armor of most modern main battle tanks with one shot. This is very powerful. If the skull comes again, there is no need to send troops. A few rounds of shooting can take it away. Suwei directly got back 100 sets. The second is a cruise missile called Swift, with a range of 3,000 kilometers. It is one of the medium and long-range weapons equipped on the Black Phoenix mecha, which can be used to eliminate small targets in the air and destroy small and medium-sized units on the ground. The biggest feature of Swift is its small size, flexibility and speed. Thanks to hydrogen metal, the size of the Swift is very small, almost the size of a modern single-soldier rocket launcher, and the launch unit is only the size of a large suitcase. Every 5 Swifts form a launch unit, and every 4 launch units form a group. They are all modular designs, which are very convenient to carry and assemble. There is no doubt that 100 groups will empty the spare inventory of Black Phoenix. Back to Xinghu weapon, Suwei went straight to the underground base. Then, a group of engineering robots lined up to come out. Install the giant bow on the city wall and place the Swifts around the training ground. Yes, it is to place it, which is divided into 3 steps. The first step is to put it down, the second step is to fix it with a few screws, the third step is to connect it to the main brain. Opit. In half a day, the factory's defense system was upgraded. For these high-tech things, the people of Xinghu are no longer surprised. Continue to complete their own work. Mr. Minister, how is this operation? The Office of the Secretary of Defense in the Octagon of the United States ushered in an uninvited guest. That is John D., the director of the Security Bureau. After the terrorist attack on Paro failed, John D. heard that the military had made a major breakthrough in power armor, so he discussed it with Ellison. He planned to take down Meninia in one fell swoop while the Foundation was not stable and the Starlight weapons were defenseless. That's when the plan of 300 Doomslayers to raid the Starlight weapons factory came about. This plan was also approved by the president. He rushed over as soon as he heard the news. The 300 Doomslayers we just made were wiped out, U.S. Defense Secretary Ellison replied with a sullen face. Everything went well at the beginning. With their air superiority, they airdropped the Doomslayers directly to the gate of Starlight weapons. But the ending was unexpected. With a double advantage in numbers, they were still destroyed by the Starlight Legion. The casualties of the Starlight Army were almost negligible. This made Ellison extremely disappointed with the Doomslayer. If you compare goods, you have to throw them away. John Dee's face instantly became ugly. Minister. The Doomslayer still has his merits, and the facts prove that HX-1 is not invincible either. They can also be killed. SYNOPSIS on the side could not help but speak out in dissatisfaction. He was summoned by the military, and the purpose was to let him see how the Doomslayer, who he led, was destroyed. Advantages, Dr. SYNOPSIS, why don't I see any of the merits you mentioned? Ellison pointed at the big screen and the battle video of the Doomslayer and the Xinghu army, and asked angrily. Those videos came from the battle recorder installed on the super soldier. The Xinghu weapons area has become a satellite-restricted area, and they cannot directly obtain first-hand information, so they have to use a short-range communication recorder to record the scene at that time. If Su Wei had the Swift at that time, then the two large planes would also be doomed, and they would not be able to bring back these battle videos. Minister, except for HX-1, the Doomslayer is currently the most powerful weapon, SYNOPSIS said with a firm face. Powerful? Are you kidding? Ellison was so angry that he laughed. Apart from HX-1, what is the point of comparison? Don't forget that the Doomslayer was born to compete with HX-1. Minister, this failure is not entirely due to the Doomslayer, SYNOPSIS said calmly. Humph, please don't make excuses for your failure. Ellison had obviously lost confidence in SYNOPSIS. Minister, this is not an excuse. Please look at the HX-1 power armors numbered 01, 02, 03 and 04. I swear, they are the elite of the elite, and nearly half of the Doomslayers died at their hands. If, at that time, we had the corresponding elite to compete with them, the battle situation would not be like this. SYNOPSIS played the video again and began to explain one by one. Humph. Ellison snorted coldly and didn't respond. This was caused by their military underestimating the strength of the Starlight weapon factory. Because, in the Battle of Malgisa, the Starlight Army relied on power armor to kill all around, and did not highlight individual abilities. Unexpectedly, in just a dozen days, the overall strength of the Starlight Army has reached a big step. And the number of HX-1 power armor has doubled. This directly led to the embarrassing battle situation of the Doomslayer. However, when it was discovered, it was too late. The Doomslayer had no flying ability, and its speed was not even half of the HX-1 at full power. It couldn't even retreat, and it could only fight to the end. Yes, I admit that the Doomslayer has many disadvantages. The speed is particularly prominent. We will make adjustments to this as soon as possible and increase the auxiliary power part. Although it will still be limited by the cruising time, it is still possible to burst for a short time. At least we can hold an HX-1 and die together, SYNOPSIS said calmly. Anyway, there are many polluters, and 1 for 1 is definitely a profit. Besides, this is a road of no return, and there is no chance to turn back. Unable to meet the needs of the military, they are unlucky. Minister, your call. Just then, a staff officer handed Ellison a blue microphone. Ellison quickly took it. This call was a special line for the president. The call was short, but Ellison's face became even uglier. Dr. SYNOPSIS, optimize your plan immediately. In 3 days, I need 100 improved Doomsday Soldier. Ellison put down the microphone and gave the order directly. As you wish. SYNOPSIS saluted to Ellison gentlemanly. Ellison was in no mood, waved his hand, and asked the staff officer to take SYNOPSIS out. Chapter 328 Diving. Mr. President, is there a new mission? After the door was closed, John Dee asked Ellison with a serious face. King Nehru agreed, but asked for reinforcements. Ellison said calmly at this time. In the night, there was no wind and the sea was sparkling. A large civilian fishing boat was running at full speed on it. It set out from the port of Shitu in the north of Manania, crossed the Abo Sea, and came to the coastline near the country of Iraq. Although the appearance of this fishing boat is a bit shabby, it carries the most advanced HX-1 power armor in the world. This time, a lightning-fast decapitation operation is to be carried out. Therefore, Su Wei only selected elite soldiers, a total of more than 30 people. It took 2 days of drifting on the sea to arrive here. This speed is indeed slow enough. It would be great if there were large aircraft. Unfortunately, this aspect is also a shortcoming in the wasteland world, and the sky of the wasteland is more dangerous than the land. From the last giant eagle with a wingspan of 100 meters, we know that humans have lost the right to dominate the air. In addition, there is no satellite navigation in the wasteland, and it is easy to lose direction when flying at high altitude, so there is still a long way to go. Brother, we are about to enter the coast of Yiguo. While sitting in the cabin and studying the map of Yiguo with everyone, Chu Haoyan's voice came from the communicator. He and Hong Dani were watching the wind on the deck. Received, notify Lao Niu to return to the team and prepare for action, Su Wei replied in the communicator. Received, Chu Haoyan replied. In the sea area within a few kilometers, only one of their ships is drifting alone. Su Wei can not only block the satellite monitoring, but also use satellites to monitor the surrounding seas. If something happens, he will notify the captain to change the course and stagger with it. In this way, this large fishing boat stopped steadily on the high seas near the coast of Yiguo. After waiting for Chu Haoyan and Hong Dani to return to the cabin and put on the HX-1 power armor, the Xinghu army came to the deck one by one. For this operation, this fishing boat has been bought by Su Wei, and after modification, the fish hold was opened up and became the soldier's cabin. Although it is hot and stuffy, HX-1 has its own life support system and will not be affected too much by the outside world. Coupled with a strengthened body, everyone is now in high spirits and ready to do a big job. Before joining the Xinghu army, they were still worried about tomorrow's food, but now? Not only are they well fed and well clothed, but they are also driving the world's most advanced power armor and galloping on the battlefield. More importantly, relying on Xinghu weapons, they let their families have enough food, live in houses, grow wheat, and raise piglets. Therefore, the Xinghu army has a special feeling for Xinghu weapons. They also know clearly in their hearts that once the Xinghu weapons are destroyed, all the beautiful things in front of them will disappear. Under such conditions, Ma Kaiang's ideological work was very successful, making every Xinghu army desperately want to protect the Xinghu weapons. Because only in this way can they continue the beautiful life they dream of. Seeing the people in high spirits, Su Wei was very satisfied. After checking that there was no doubt, he activated the underwater mode of the HX-1 power armor and jumped into the sea first. The others followed suit and jumped in. Suddenly, there was a splashing sound around the fishing boat like dumplings in a pot. The HX-1 power armor is an all-round power armor from the wasteland, which means it can be used on land, sea and air. However, relatively speaking, its strength is still land warfare, and its flying and diving capabilities are only auxiliary functions, allowing it to better provide protection for soldiers. The vision in the sea is almost zero, so it can only rely on navigation to move forward. Su Wei took the lead, and after the thrusters on his back and feet blew out a string of bubbles, he pushed him out like a fish. Others followed one after another, scaring the fish to flee everywhere. The scene was quite spectacular. Under the precise guidance of multiple satellites, Su Wei led everyone to a beach in the wilderness. Under the night sky, metal lumps slowly poked their heads out of the sea, then stood up from the sea and slowly walked onto the beach. If someone saw this scene, they would definitely think that aliens were attacking the Earth. Fortunately, it was late at night and this place was in the wilderness, without a single ghost. After landing, everyone immediately went into the coconut grove by the beach. Heozi. Count the people. Su Wei checked the map on the holographic screen and turned on the positioning navigation. Brother, not one less. Soon, Chu Haoyan counted the number of people and reported it. Let's go. Su Wei gave an order and activated a low-altitude flight capability, flying along the route planned by the satellite navigation. Along the way, we must also avoid cities, villages, and highways. We will go to the wilderness and Chibi Desert. In this way, the journey will be longer. But now that we can use the flying ability, the speed is naturally not slow, and we should be able to reach the target location before dawn. In this way, after a night, the Xinghu army crossed hundreds of kilometers and came to Camo in Iraq. Camo is a small town on the edge of the desert. It is not a big place and has a population of only a few thousand people. But in such an inconspicuous town, it hides one of the world's largest terrorist organizations, the Nightmare. Early in the morning, the first ray of sunlight shone on the town of Camo. Some women had already returned from afar with buckets of water. This was the family's water for the day. Iraq is not only hot and dry, but the war has also caused rivers to be polluted, which is even worse. People's daily water supply is difficult to guarantee. Therefore, many people have to get up before dawn to get water from water supply points a few kilometers away. If they miss it, they will have no water to drink today. Perhaps because rabbits don't eat grass near their nests, the residents of the town did not show any abnormal behavior. They were even accustomed to those armed militants who were on guard with guns. Some of them even greeted each other cordially when passing by. Looking at such a peaceful and harmonious picture, it is hard to imagine that they can cultivate such a bomb barrel. Perhaps there is a racial issue involved. Sui and others were covered with camouflage cloth and lay on a sand dune. Their bodies were mixed with the surrounding sand and soil. They could not be distinguished without close observation. Sui observed the town of Camo gradually waking up from tranquility through a long-distance lens. Early in the morning, the men gathered all the livestock in the town and set off with dry food. Do you think they were going to graze? No, they were just going to a farther place to give water to the livestock. As the men and the livestock left, the town of Camo began a new day. The women would take care of the house and do housework, while the children would play around the town. Chapter 329, Falling into Trap. As the children's play area expanded, a few slightly older children accidentally ran towards the sand dunes here. Brother, what should we do? Chu Haoan looked at the children getting closer and closer, and his palms couldn't help sweating. Even if he hated terrorists, he couldn't kill children without blinking. Prepare for action. Sui's eyes were normal, but he had an extra bottle of sleepy bugs in his hand. Now they were in the upper hand, and they could use the wind direction to spread the potion. Woo! Just as Sui was about to open the potion, a shout came from outside the town. The children who rushed to the sand dunes stopped suddenly. After looking at the sand dunes unwillingly, they turned around and ran towards the town. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. They are warriors, not butchers. At this time, Sui put away the sleepy bugs and gestured to Hong Daniu and Chu Haoan on the side. The two immediately led people to quietly sneak towards the largest manor in the town. There were many armed personnel patrolling back and forth there, which should be the headquarters of the nightmare. Later, Sui also sneaked over. Soon they arrived near the manor. Wooden fences and earthen houses. Although relatively simple, it was the best residence in the town. Action! Sui's voice came from the communication channel. The hidden Xinghu army immediately jumped out of their hiding places and raised their hands to use high-frequency electric shock guns. Instantly killed the armed elements patrolling the periphery. They had their own designated positions, so the armed elements on the periphery were forced to receive their lunchboxes without a warning. Bang bang bang. However, the noise outside immediately aroused the internal vigilance. A large number of armed personnel swarmed out of the house. God knows how they can hide so many people. If they are not well prepared, they will definitely suffer. Although these people are dressed in strange clothes, they all have AKs in their hands. Seeing the HX-1 power armor armed with all the servers, they are not afraid at all and rush up fearlessly. In an instant, bullets shot over like raindrops. Bang, bang, bang. The Xinghu army was certainly not a pushover. The dragon hunters in their hands began to show their power. Although there were only 30 people, the dragon hunters had a much faster firing rate than the AKs, and more bullets were fired back at the armed terrorists swarming in. Ding, ding, dang. The AK bullets rubbed against the power armor, splashing sparks and making a series of dense collisions. Puff, puff, puff. The dragon hunters' bullets hit the terrorists, making a sound of tissue shattering and blood spurting out. But more often, there were the wails before death. Fear instantly enveloped the entire town of Camo. People hurriedly fled back home, closed their doors, and hid inside to pray silently. At the manor, the fighting was in full swing. After killing one wave, another wave came out, as if it was endless. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the sound of a rocket launcher rang out from the roof of the tallest room. Attention, hide. Warnings immediately rang out one after another in the communication channel. But the thrusters of the Starlight Army soldiers targeted by the rocket launcher accelerated immediately, and their bodies dodged like a flash of lightning. And they dodged in a zigzag shape. Boom boom boom. 4 or 5 rockets instantly hit the ground, blowing up a large cloud of dust. None of them hit. At this time, the Starlight Army had already attacked the manor, and the powerful dragon hunters directly smashed the earthen houses into pieces. The bodies of the terrorists fell all over the ground, almost filling the entire manor. Boom boom. Some terrorists with bombs tied to their bodies rushed over, but before they got close, they were detonated by Su Wei and Chu Haoyan. The bombs on their bodies were also detonated instantly, killing more terrorists around them. The speed of cleaning was even faster. Seeing that the bomber was ineffective, the other side changed their strategy and threw grenades directly. As a result, they were horrified to find that the grenades they threw seemed to hide a transparent wall in midair, and bounced back and fell at their feet. This is even more tragic. One piece of tragic death? Needless to say, it must be Su Wei who opened the force field shield, but because of the large area and the chaos, it was basically invisible. Boom 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 boom, a series of explosions blew the terrorists to pieces. The Xinghu army took the opportunity to attack and quickly occupied the manor and surrounded the tallest three-story building. Bang! Although it was an iron gate, it was like paper in front of the power armor and was kicked open by a team member. Bang bang bang! Another team member continued to fire with a dragon hunter in his hand, and the terrorists in the room were ruthlessly harvested before they could fire a single shot. Charge! 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 More Xinghu soldiers rushed into the house. The spacious three-story building was extremely luxuriously decorated with countless solid wood furniture, silks and satins, and gold and silver ornaments. It formed a sharp contrast with the simplicity outside. Safe, safe, safe. Soon, all floors had been confirmed and all terrorists had been killed. A rough estimate is that there are hundreds of people. So far, the operation is over, and it took less than 10 minutes. Brother, something is wrong. There is not even a second-level leader among these people, not to mention the first-level leader Lu Benin, Chu Haoyan said to Su Wei on the side. The facial scanning system can quickly confirm the target. But there was no trace of the leader Lu Benin. Is it the wrong place? Hong Dainiu on the side wondered. It shouldn't be. Su Wei was also puzzled. The truth serum was so powerful that he was 100% sure that there would be problems with the confession. So what went wrong? In such a short time, it is impossible for anyone to escape, and even if they escaped, they couldn't escape far. He has been using satellite monitoring, and he didn't find anything around. Hey, wait, what's going on? At this moment, Su Wei saw a helicopter formation coming here from the satellite monitoring, followed by a convoy. Armored vehicles, troop carriers, tanks, at least 1,000 people. Oh no, I fell into a trap. Su Wei's face was ugly. Of course, I wasn't scared, but I felt sick as if I had swallowed a fly. I was actually tricked. What? Chu Haoyan and Hong Dainiu were confused. In order to prevent the artificial intelligence from being exposed, Su Wei did not synchronize satellite monitoring in the channel. There is a team of more than 1,000 people rushing towards us now. Su Wei shared the satellite screenshot. Oh my god, armored vehicles, tanks, and armed helicopters, this is going to be lively. Chu Haoyan was not surprised but happy, and Hong Dainiu also smiled. These miscellaneous soldiers just now were not challenging at all. This regular army looks a bit impressive. I just don't know if they can hold up. Chapter 330. Just do it. Okay, don't be careless, prepare for battle. Su Wei clapped his hands immediately. The other side is coming aggressively, and they must have some plan. Besides, the culprit Lu Benin has not been beheaded yet. How can they retreat? Yes, Commander. Chu Haoyan saluted Su Wei jokingly, and then ran to gather the team with Hong Dainiu. After the team was assembled, Su Wei ordered to take the initiative. It is estimated that there will be a big battle later. He did not intend to let these residents suffer unnecessary harm. 1 kilometer away from the town, there is a flat desert, which is a natural and excellent battlefield. The HX-1 power armor thruster was turned on, and everyone flew to the designated location like a bumblebee out of the nest. 10 minutes later, the Xinghu army encountered the enemy's armed helicopter. Whoosh! The armed helicopter fired air-to-ground missiles without hesitation, and the machine guns on it also opened fire, firing golden bullet chains. Fuck, how dare you swat a fly on the tiger's back, hit a mosquito on the lion's face, and dare to touch the earth on the Tai Sui's head. Hey, whoever, shoot down these bamboo helicopters for me. As soon as he came up, he was covered by firepower, and Chu Haoyan was immediately furious. Yes, several soldiers immediately put rocket launchers on their shoulders. These were all seized from the manor just now. Chu Haoyan saw that the other party had helicopters and tanks, so he asked people to carry some over. Now it comes in handy. By the way, there are also rockets that can hit tanks, which are enough to give these grandsons a pot. I'll do it. Chu Haoyan felt unsatisfied, ran over, grabbed a rocket launcher in his hand, knelt on one knee, shouldered the rocket launcher, and aimed at one of the oncoming armed helicopters. As if it had discovered a threat, the helicopter quickly shook its head and prepared to dodge. You just discovered it now, it's too late. Chu Haoyan immediately pulled the trigger, and the rocket flew out immediately, biting towards the helicopter like a poisonous snake. Boom! The distance was too close, and the helicopter could not completely avoid it, and was hit directly at the tail. The fuselage instantly lost balance and rolled to the ground. Then there was a loud bang, and the armed helicopter landed in a big fireball. Wow! Cool. At this time, the communication channel of the Xinghu army was filled with praises. Chu Haoyan immediately swelled up. After standing up, he took the transmitter in his hand, put it to his mouth and blew it pretentiously, and then posed a posture of looking up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. Then, his vain smile froze on his face. Because at this time, he realized that the one being praised by everyone was not him at all. It was Sui. I saw that the number 01HX1 power armor directly grabbed the landing gear of an armed helicopter with one hand, hanging in the air, swinging back and forth as the aircraft dodged left and right, but just didn't let go. Suddenly, he saw the opportunity, and with a bang, he punched a big hole in the bottom of the cockpit, and then pulled out a bunch of flashing arc wires. Then, the armed helicopter lost its balance, spun, and fell to the ground. At this time, HX-1 power armor number 01 stepped on the fuselage with its foot without panic, and flew up like a sharp arrow, shooting at a nearby armed helicopter. Such a terrifying attack method frightened the remaining armed helicopters, and they all turned their heads and fled to the outside of the field. Boom! 2 armed helicopters fell and exploded one after another, turning into fireballs, and the people on them also turned into ashes. Now look again. HX-1 power armor number 01, in the process of falling, did several somersaults to relieve the force of falling, and landed steadily on the ground with a bang, only splashing a cloud of dust. Double kill, awesome, you are worthy of being my brother, Chu Haoyan couldn't help but praise. Although his strength has greatly increased now, he can't do such a difficult move. Okay, stop being funny, quick battle and quick decision, Su Wei's voice sounded in the communication channel. Got it, go. The Xinghu army was like a chicken with blood, chasing after the helicopters. At this moment, a strange picture can be seen. A group of people are chasing after several helicopters in the sky. At this moment, the pilots of the helicopters are all broken. Brothers, are you infantry? Can you still fight happily like this, Cap? Soon, the helicopter met the ground troops coming from behind. However, it flew away without a word, as if its butt was on fire. The ground troops looked confused. What's going on? The enemy ran to the back? The enemy is coming, quick, jump out of the car. Just as everyone was confused, the commander's roar rang in their ears. Bang bang bang. Boom boom boom. Before they could come to their senses, the vanguard was enveloped by a metal storm. In the blink of an eye, the car was destroyed and the people were killed, with more than half of them dead or injured. Retreat 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 tanks, tanks on top, the commander of the ground force shouted loudly, and the adjutant beside him hurriedly ran to convey the order. The scene was instantly in chaos. Many veterans were stunned. After so many years of fighting, this was the first time they encountered such a rapid encounter. Boom boom boom. Fortunately, the mechanized armored soldiers did not fail this time, and the king of land warfare, the tank, made a brilliant appearance. The confused soldiers immediately found the backbone and rushed madly to the back of the tank. Heavy armor, strong horsepower, and a mighty turret. The exciting BGM started. Boom. An armor-piercing rocket that flew from nowhere instantly hit a tank turret. With a bang, the tank turret was directly blown away. Gag, a group of crews flew over the heads of the crowd. Oh, where is the backbone? Where is the king of land warfare? How come it was knocked down by a single shot? At this moment, the ground troops were extremely psychologically devastated. They had not even met the enemy, but they had been attacked twice. As the saying goes, once is strong, twice is weak, and the third is exhausted. According to the current situation, there is no need to wait for the third time to be exhausted. Shoot. The tank soldiers hurriedly aimed at the direction where the rockets were flying and fired. Boom boom boom. Several shells were fired, and dust immediately splashed all over the sky. The battlefield suddenly became quiet, and the enemy seemed to have disappeared. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. But soon, a harsh sound broke the sudden silence. It was the sound of the rocket flying. Avoid, avoid, the tank captain shouted until his voice was hoarse. And the driver stepped on the accelerator to the bottom. But the speed of the tank's change of direction still couldn't keep up with the speed of the rocket. Boom boom boom. 3 more tanks were hit, one of which had its tracks blown off, and 2 had their side armor penetrated. One of the tanks was the most unlucky, and its ammunition chamber was detonated, causing a violent explosion. It is estimated that the people inside were all dead. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331 Killing Pigs. Crack, crack, crack. There was a friction sound from stepping on the sand. But to everyone's ears, it sounded like the footsteps of the god of death. Even the tanks seemed to be trembling. Get lost. That was the trembling of the engine when it was refueled. Cough, cough, cough. Anyway, the atmosphere was extremely solemn. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a team of black humanoid armor rushed out from the yellow sand. There were only a few dozen people, but they walked out with a momentum of thousands of troops. Is this the enemy they are facing? The regular army looked at the Xinghu army walking out of the yellow sands in disbelief. Although wars are always very suspenseful. But this one is too suspenseful. RoboCop? Iron Man? Aliens? Oh god, I want to go home. Mom attack. However, the only order their superiors received was to attack. At this moment, the armed helicopters that had fled in panic before also turned their heads and flew back to join the new round of battle. Brother, these guys are probably the legendary Suwei army. Looking at the rain of bullets on the opposite side, Chu Haoyan said in the communication channel. Be more confident, get rid of the fear, Suwei replied. Who else but the Suwei army can mobilize so many armed forces on this territory? So, the Nightmare is also a vessel of the Suwei army, Chu Haoyan chanted while dodging the shells. Nonsense, you move faster, Suwei couldn't help but laugh and scold. Here they come, my brother. As Chu Haoyan accelerated, the other Xinghu army also quickly dispersed and rushed towards the Suwei army on the opposite side. Tanks and other heavy weapons can hurt HX-1, but they must be able to hit. HX-1, which was accelerating at full speed, dodged left and right, and with the help of the control system, made irregular movement trajectories, which made people dazzled, not to mention aiming. At the same time, in a military camp dozens of kilometers away, a fat man wearing camouflage combat uniforms and holding a cigar was sitting in his room drinking strong liquor very leisurely. He is the leader of the Suwei army, Lakamobi. Don't worry, old man. No matter how many of them come, I will make sure they never come back. Lakamobi took a puff of his cigar and took a sip of liquor, looking very happy. He looked up and saw a middle-aged man with a sad face opposite him, and couldn't help but comfort him. The Starlight Army has the most advanced power armor in the world. What I'm worried about is that they ran away early. The middle-aged man with a sad face was wearing a gray robe, a gray turban on his head, and his skinny cheeks were covered with the vicissitudes of life. He was Liu Benin, the first-level leader of the Nightmare. 10 minutes ago, they received a report that the Nightmare base was attacked by the enemy, and Lakamobi immediately ordered the main force of his Suwei army to go to support. This was a plan that had been made early. Because Starlight Weapons released a video of the captured terrorists, Liu Benin guessed that Starlight Weapons would retaliate against him, and the development of things was as he expected. Don't worry, old friend, our Suwei army is a fully mechanized force, and we have stationed it near the town of Kamo in advance. It will only take about 10 minutes to get there. I guess they are already in a fight now, Lakamobi said confidently. He was not bragging. Looking at the entire Iraq, his Suwei army is the strongest and best equipped. All American equipment. And every year, American officers come to provide guidance, and their skills are absolutely first class. I hope to give them a heavy blow, Liu Benin said thoughtfully. In his opinion, the Battle of Malgisa, which was widely circulated on the internet, was because the Xinghu army captured the leader of the other side, which made the Red Sleeve army and the mercenaries afraid to act rashly and eventually lost the opportunity to resist. So now he is more worried that the Xinghu army will escape. Haha, it's a must. I have deployed heavy troops in 3 directions. The only gap left is the one leading to us. However, I have been running this military camp for 20 years. It is strong enough, let's have a toast. I wish us a world-shaking achievement, Lackermoby said with a smug look on his face. Cheers. Llewellyn also picked up the wine glass in front of him and drank elegantly. It's a pity that the news of the doomed soldiers' raid on the star weapon was not leaked, otherwise, the two would not be drinking here peacefully, but would pack up and run away, running as far as they could. Llewellyn likes to create fear for others, but he never likes others to create fear for him. General, just as the two put down their wine glasses, a Suwai army officer ran in with sweat all over his head. How can you be so flustered? Tell me, what's the matter? His good mood was disturbed. Lackermoby looked unhappy. General, the enemy is too strong. As soon as we made contact, we lost 4 armed helicopters and 6 main battle tanks, over 100 casualties, the Suwai officer said with a pale face. What? Lackermoby was shocked, his mouth wide open, and he didn't even notice that the cigar had fallen into his crotch. It's only been a few minutes, and so many people have been lost. People are easy to deal with, just recruit more. But planes and tanks, you can't necessarily buy them even if you have money. Where are my people? Where is the battlefield? Llewellyn on the side asked nervously. The battlefield is 1 kilometer away from the town of Camo. The nightmare has lost contact, the officer answered cautiously. Although Llewellyn looks harmless, in everyone's heart, he is more terrifying than Lackermoby. After all, a rational madman, no one knows what he wants to do. The room suddenly fell into an incomparable silence. General, you, the Suwai officer suddenly looked at Lackermoby anxiously, but was interrupted before he finished speaking. How many people are there? Lackermoby asked angrily. More than 30 people, General. The Suwai officer looked anxious, but was interrupted halfway through his words. Damn it. Which idiot is leading the team? Lackermoby was so angry that he slapped the armrest of the seat. More than 30 people killed, 4 armed helicopters, 6 main battle tanks, and more than 100 people from the Suwai army at the first sight. Is the commander a fool? Even if there are more than 100 pigs, they can't be killed so quickly. It's Colonel Babukachin, General. After the Suwai officer answered, he wanted to say something anxiously, but was interrupted again. Shut up, you don't need to remind me, he is my brother-in-law, but even so, he will be severely punished. Lackermoby was so angry that he slapped the armrest of the seat again. Chapter 332 Perm. General Moby, your head. At this time, Llewellyn, who was standing by, didn't care about being sad for his people and shouted loudly. My head, what's wrong with my head? Although Lackermoby didn't want to pay attention, Llewellyn's status was not low, so he had to ask patiently. It's on fire. Llewellyn couldn't help but cover his face and said. By the way, don't you feel hot? Lackermoby's eyes followed Llewellyn's guidance and looked at his crotch. Damn. The fallen cigar burned a big hole in his pants, and wisps of black smoke were coming out of it. The room was filled with the smell of burnt hair. Fuck oil. Lackermoby felt a piercing pain at this time, and jumped up from the seat as a reflex. That's not all. Subconsciously picked up the bottle and poured it on it. Boom, so it was a tragedy. Originally it was just a little smoke, but now it was directly on fire. Ah, water, 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 hurry, get water, Lackermoby screamed in panic. General, here comes the water. The Suwai officer hurriedly moved the fish tank over. Tear up the big shop, this is alcohol on fire, don't use water to put out alcohol fire, poison oil and tear up your balls, idiot, do you want to burn down the entire barracks? At this time, Llewellyn jumped out and stopped the Suwai officer. Quick, save me, Lackermoby slapped himself frantically, but could not stop the spread of the flames. Then what should I do? The Suwai officer was so anxious that he was about to cry. Go get the fire extinguisher. Idiot, Llewellyn wanted to kick him, and the elite of Temiao Tuyo? Yes, the Suwai officer immediately put down the fish tank and ran to get the fire extinguisher. Soon, after a few breaths, the Suwai officer rushed in with a fire extinguisher, followed by several guards, also holding fire extinguishers in their hands. Pull out the safety pin, hold the nozzle in one hand and the pressure handle in the other. Hiss, the fire extinguisher farted, emitting a wisp of white smoke, and then nothing happened. Shit. Hiss, almost at the same time, the fire extinguisher in the guard's hand also did the same thing. Aw fuck, what's going on? Lackermoby felt like he was about to be burned, but the damn flames were getting bigger and bigger. General, it's expired, The Suwei officer took the fire extinguisher and took a closer look. The needle was leaning towards the bottom of the red area. Looking at the production date, it had been expired for more than 10 years. Fuck. Swindlers. Lackermoby suddenly felt dizzy. He gave the Americans so much money every year for maintenance, but they were unwilling to even replace a fire extinguisher. Isn't this a ripoff? At this moment, Lackermoby was filled with immense resentment towards his old employer. Mr. Lubinin, the Suwei officer and the guard were stunned. Go find some sand? The more the better. Lubinin immediately turned into a little encyclopedia. Yes, Officer Suwei, and the guards hurried out again. After a while, they took sand from outside and poured it directly on Lackermoby's body, forming a small sand bunker. The fire was finally put out. Although there were still waves of pain, Lackermoby couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was timely. Otherwise, the happiness of his lower body would be ruined. What are you guys doing in here, brother? Do you know? At this moment, a strange voice sounded at the door. Get lost? How would I know? With a get lost, a humanoid armor sprayed with the number 01 walked in, followed by two humanoid armors with the same clothes, but the numbers were 02 and 05. There were also an unknown number of humanoid armors outside the door, guarding the main road. HX-1, Starlight Army. Lubinin's first reaction after coming to his senses was to escape. Chu Haoyan raised his hand and gave Lubinin an electric shock, knocking him down. Old man, where can you escape? Chu Haoyan said, pulling out the steel cable and tying Lubinin up like a big dumpling. The guard was about to stop him when Huang Dani rushed up and killed him with 3 punches and 2 kicks. General Lackermoby, nice to meet you. Suwei lowered his mask, revealing Paro's face, and said to Lackermoby, who was buried in the sand bunker. Humph. Lackermoby's face was livid. It was not that he didn't want to get up, but he was embarrassed to get up because his pants were burned with a big hole. In addition, the fact that these people could come here means that the defense outside has been ruined. Only when the army he sent out to ambush comes back, there may be a chance to turn the tables. Lackermoby, originally we would not have had any intersection, but now, you not only sheltered the terrorist Lubinin, and you also sent troops to attack us. Sorry, we can only use your HUD to compensate for the shock we suffered, Suwei said, pulling out the alloy knife on his back. Protect the general. The Suwei officer was loyal, and rushed up with a pistol pulled out from his waist. Swish. However, before he could shoot, the alloy knife in Suwei's hand pierced his chest, and the momentum did not decrease, directly nailing it to a concrete wall. Looking more closely, you will find that the alloy knife first cut off the steel pistol, and then killed the officer. The speed is so fast that it is difficult for ordinary people to see. Hiss. Lackermoby, who did not expect Suwei to kill without hesitation, could not help but take a breath. Paro, this is the headquarters of the Suwei army. If something happens to me, none of you can leave, Lackermoby threatened with an embarrassed look. Until this moment, he still didn't believe that Suwei would really kill him. Because in his opinion, Suwei and his men were already trapped in a tiger's den. If he wasn't a hostage, Suwei's army would definitely rush in and tear them apart. Swish. As soon as Suwei raised his hand, Chu Haoyan stepped forward, pulled down the alloy sword on the wall, and threw it back to him. What's wrong with the base camp, man? Come when you want, leave when you want. Do you think you are an onion? Suwei pointed the alloy sword in his hand at Lackermoby again. Get up. Without waiting for Lackermoby to answer, Chu Haoyan grabbed his collar and lifted him up. Oh my god, is it that powerful? Is it caused by friction? Without the cover of sand? The big hole burned on Lackermoby's pants was clearly visible. Chu Haoyan's voice immediately attracted everyone's attention. After seeing Lackermoby's miserable condition, everyone couldn't help but burst into laughter. Who can bear this? Chapter 333 Public Enemy. Fuck, Haozi, put him down from me, it's too eye-catching. Looking at the big black mass, Suwei said with disdain. This complaint immediately caused extreme dissatisfaction in Lackermoby. You crows, stop laughing at the pig's blackness, okay? Oh, Chu Haoyan stuffed Lackermoby into the sand bunker again. Lackermoby immediately looked like he wanted to cry but had no tears. Who put a stone in the sand? And it was pointed, and undercover. In an instant, he was made into a tough guy. Alright. Stop wasting time, hurry up and send him to his death, then evacuate. Suwei shook the blood off the knife and directly passed the buck. It seemed that killing this guy would dirty his hands. Got it, Chu Haoyan replied immediately. No, 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 you can't. This is the kingdom of Iraq. You have no right. Puff. Before Lakramobi could finish his words, Shu Haoyan chopped off his head. This is the fate of going against the Xinghu army. Retreat. Su Wei looked around and didn't find anything valuable, so he gave the order. Yes, Commander. As he said that, Hong Jianyu grabbed Lu Benin, put him on his shoulder, and rushed out. The Xinghu army who were covering outside never stopped shooting. The dragon hunters and the captured rockets suppressed the Su Wei army outside so much that they couldn't raise their heads. In addition, Lakramobi was in the room, so the Su Wei army didn't dare to use heavy weapons to attack. As soon as Su Wei and others came out, they rushed forward quickly. Under the strong firepower suppression, coupled with the extreme acceleration of HX-1, a group of people broke out of the Su Wei army's base camp again. No one could stop them. The Su Wei army rushed into the room at the first time, only to see the mess on the ground. The leader, General Lakramobi, fell to the ground with his head and body separated. Countless Su Wei soldiers were frightened out of their wits. In the midst of thousands of troops, taking the head of the general is like taking something out of a bag. What a terrible existence is this! The most terrifying thing is that someone found that Lakramobi's lower body had obvious signs of being burned by fire. What kind of hobby is this? For a time, the fear of the Xinghu army was deeply engraved in the bones of the Su Wei army. Even the major armed organizations in Iraq were in danger. Especially the small leaders who had some friendship with Lakramobi on weekdays were afraid that the Xinghu army would suddenly descend from the sky and take him away. If Su Wei knew that he was invisibly blamed for a huge black pot, I wonder what he would think? The Xinghu army took Lu Benin back from the original route. Anyway, with a large map, satellite, you can always find the enemy first, and you can choose to fight or avoid. The culprit had been caught. Su Wei didn't want to cause any more trouble, so he chose to avoid it and return to the beach as quickly as possible. He also swam to the high seas by diving. The fishing boat was still waiting there. As for Lu Benin, of course there would be no extra power armor to provide protection. At most, he would be given a sip of the kind of medicine that temporarily allows the human body to stop breathing. Then he soaked in water all the way. There was nothing else, but the speed of HX-1 in the water was not slow. The water flow it stirred up was like a sharp blade, which made Lu Benin's face hurt. After everyone boarded the boat, the fishing boat sailed to the depths of the sea. It returned to the port of Shitu in the north of Meninia smoothly. As soon as the boat docked, Cadman brought people to greet him. He had been waiting here for a long time. When the two met, they naturally gave each other a warm hug. They talked about the harvest this time with joy. The reason why Lu Benin was captured was to establish authority. The new government of Meninia had just been established not long ago, and many people could not see the situation clearly. They thought it was still the same as before and could be oppressed at will. Therefore, Su Wei took the opportunity of this terrorist attack to announce to the world. Let the Meninia government publicly try the terrorist leader Lu Benin and sentence him to death. Tell the world that Meninia is not only a restricted area for mercenaries, but also a restricted area for terrorists. Anyone who violates the ban, no matter how strong he is, he must be punished. No matter how far he is, he must be punished. On the day Lu Benin was captured and brought back to Meninia, the Meninia government held a trial meeting and sent Lu Benin, the terrorist planner and creator, to the guillotine. The whole process was broadcast live to the world. Under the guard of the Starlight Army, there were no accidents in the whole process from trial to execution. The main reason was that Su Wei's speed was too fast. It only took 5 days from arrest to trial, which made many organizations unable to react. However, even if an organization wants to rescue Lu Benin, it must weigh whether it is the opponent of the Starlight Army. Once you offend Meninia, your fate may be like the nightmare, and you will be chased by Starlight for thousands of miles. With such considerations, you will naturally be timid. Meninia's move undoubtedly declared war on terrorists around the world. While establishing its prestige, it also firmly tied the fate of its country to the star weapons. Cadman knew all this, but he still fully cooperated with Su Wei. Because the more he understood, the more he feared. The power of the star weapons was by no means something that the world could understand. He was ready to cling to the thigh and let Meninia rise with his thigh. Lu Benin's death moved countries around the world. Many people didn't understand. Meninia, a small country, dared to be so tough. Not long ago, thousands of mercenaries were massacred in the Battle of Margisa, which offended the mercenary organization to death. But not long after, The famous leader of the terrorist organization, Liu Benin, was publicly tried and executed. This is equivalent to offending the two largest organizations in the world at the same time. Although they are usually independent and scattered, becoming their public enemy will give even the number one superpower, the United States, a headache. What's more, it is a small country like Manila. There were even posts on the internet mocking Manila for being ignorant of the world. With the help of some people, it has become a hot topic. It is likely to become a global hotspot. However, more people have fallen into silence. Whether it is the new government of Manila, the Battle of Margisa, or the pursuit of the murderer, there are shadows of Xinghu weapons in all of them. An HX-1 power armor that is the best in the world. At present, only one order from Daksha has been accepted. With a continuous appearance of the Xinghu army, the performance of this power armor has been continuously demonstrated to the world. Unfortunately, it is not available. So, someone else linked the two together. Daksha, Xinghu. Maybe they have already reached an agreement in secret, so what do they want to do to Manila? In addition to weighing Xinghu, they also have to weigh the weight of Daksha. This is terrifying when you think about it carefully. Su Wei didn't pay much attention to these various speculations. As long as he achieved his goal of deterrence, it would be fine. As for arousing public anger? Haha. Joke. Then beat him until he surrenders. Chapter 334, Incognito Visit. After the trial, Manila returned to normal life. The personnel of Flight MD-112 had been reviewed, and except for the 3 terrorists, the others were all normal people. So the Manila government stepped in and sent all these people to their original destination, Saudi Arabia. As for the plane accident and how the terrorists got on the plane, it was unknown. According to Su Wei, MD Airlines had to give a reasonable explanation and deal with the relevant personnel before they could get their plane back. But MD Airlines has been pretending to be procrastinating, so just wait. Therefore, the accident plane was still detained by Xinghu weapon. Anyway, it was them who suffered the loss, and it had nothing to do with me. At the same time, Xinghu weapon delivered Maninia's first batch of weapons orders in a high-profile manner. Although there were only simple individual weapons such as rifles and machine guns, they were combined with heavy weapons previously seized from the Red Sleeves army. Today's Manila government forces can be said to have replaced their muskets with cannons, and their strength has soared. It has become a powerful country with military strength that ranks among the top 10 on the African continent. When all countries were sighing, Manila once again announced the second batch of purchase lists in a high-profile manner. Although there are not many types, there are high-tech heavy weapons such as close-in defense guns, electromagnetic guns, and medium and long-range cruise missiles. This is another silent oath. Apart from other things, the medium and long-range cruise missiles code-named Swift have a range of 3,000 kilometers. This data alone is enough to shock the world. Manila, which has no foundation, suddenly has medium and long-range cruise missiles. After deployment, it can cover the territory. In the future, Manila's territorial waters and airspace are not something you can enter just because you want to. After showing the world the fangs of deterrence, Su Wei ushered in a rare vacation. He could have returned to China immediately, but because he promised Xia Wei that he would go to see Feng Zuli's condition, Su Wei turned to Mugaza. After more than 2 months away, when he returned to Mugaza, Su Wei felt a brand new feeling. Neat streets and bright shops. The wounds caused by the war have been repaired, and even the old houses have been repainted and rejuvenated. Pedestrians on the street showed unprecedented smiles. Although only a few months have passed, the new government of Manila has shown full sincerity. It has brought tangible benefits to the people. At the same time, with the influx of a large number of Xia merchants, Mugaza can only be described as changing with each passing day, which has also made a lot of money for local residents. An ancient city that has been ravaged by war seems to have awakened the blood of development. After parking the car in a public parking space, Su Wei checked his appearance and got out of the car after confirming that there was nothing missing. He walked towards a 3-story building with a sign of Zhuyi Tourism. "Hello, sir, may I help you?" As soon as he entered the door, a receptionist from Manila came up to him and asked in fluent Daksha. In addition to his dark skin, his facial features are quite delicate. He should be considered one of the few beauties in the local area. "Hello, do you have a private tour route?" Su Wei deliberately asked. This time, he did not use Paro's face, but a strange face of Daksha. "Yes, sir, excuse me, what projects do you want to experience? We have individual projects and projects that can be linked together. The black-skinned lady took out a brochure from the counter and prepared to introduce it to Sue. Wait a minute, who is in charge here? Sue interrupted the black-skinned lady. The general manager of our company, sir. Is there any problem? The black-skinned lady said with some concern. Is this person going to complain? But she hasn't said anything yet. Oh, no problem, I just want to talk to your manager, confirm something. Sue looked like a big shot. The black-skinned lady looked embarrassed. This person is too weird, what can't I tell her? A project worth 10 million Xia coins, can you make the decision? Sue could only talk nonsense. Sir, please wait a moment. I'll go see if our manager is here. The black-skinned lady was surprised, but she didn't rush to take people there. Okay, I'll wait here, Sue said and sat down on the sofa in the lounge area. Okay, sir. The black-skinned lady quickly poured a glass of water, and then trotted upstairs. After a while, the black-skinned lady trotted down and asked Sue to go up. Although this place is not very big, the decoration style is very good, turning decay into magic, giving the small building a more fashionable flavor. Passing through the office area on the second floor, I went straight to the third floor. Half of this is the office area and half is the general manager's office. In the office area, Sue saw employees code-named small tables, small chairs, and small stools. They actually followed here. It seems that they are loyal. Several people looked up at Sue and found that he was a strange face, and then lowered their heads to do their own things. Dong dong dong. The black-skinned lady knocked on the door of the general manager's office. The conversation inside stopped immediately. Then Feng Zuli's voice was heard. The black-skinned lady pushed the door open and walked in with Sue. Sue saw Feng Zuli sitting on the sofa in the lounge area at a glance, but there was another woman next to her. Sue subconsciously turned his head to look at her and pretended to look at the decorations in the room. That woman was none other than Su Jin, codenamed Yudi. Why is she here? Why are the two chatting so happily again? Okay, then I'll leave first, contact me later. Just as Sue was suspicious, Su Jin stood up from the sofa. Okay, I'll take you there. Feng Zuli also stood up. No, I'm familiar with this place. Su Jin walked towards the door. But when she passed by Sue, her heart suddenly beat rapidly. She couldn't help but look at Sue at this moment again. Unfortunately, it was a strange face she had never seen before. This made her disappointed for a while, but she soon recovered as usual and walked out of the office with steady steps. Sir, this is our general manager, Miss Feng Zuli. Seeing the guest leave, the black-skinned lady hurriedly introduced Sue. Hello, Manager Feng. Sue activated the voice changer, making his voice sound very vicissitudes. Hello, please sit down. Feng Zuli stared with a pair of big eyes, curiously looking at the strange man in front of him. Thank you. With that, Sue sat in the seat where Su Jin had just sat. Sally, you go and do your work first. Feng Zuli said to the black-skinned lady. Okay, manager. The black-skinned lady nodded, turned around and left the office. Before leaving, she closed the door. In the office, Sue and Feng Zuli were the only ones left. This made Sue feel a little uncomfortable. Boss, is this considered a secret visit? At this moment, Feng Zuli on the opposite side suddenly said this. Chapter 335 One Thing. Boss, is this considered an incognito visit? Feng Zuli's words broke the deadlock, but scared Sue so much that he almost jumped up from the sofa. Manager Feng, what do you mean by that? Sue asked hurriedly, pretending to be surprised. It's no use for you to deny it. Your eyes just now have betrayed you. Feng Zuli ignored Sue who pretended to be calm and continued to tease him. Huh? Okay. I really lost to you. How did you find it this time? I have taken off the ring and everything, Sue said with a wry smile. With a thought, the illusion closed, revealing Sue's true face. It's really you. I guessed right. Seeing Sue's magical skills, Feng Zuli was shocked, but more surprised. Guess, oh my god. It turned out that you blew it up. You won't blow up everyone you see, right? Sue suddenly felt like crying but couldn't. HMPH, boss, am I such a superficial person? If I wasn't 80% or 90% sure, how could I blow you up? Feng Zuli rolled her eyes at Sue and said confidently. Oh, then tell me, where do you get the 80% or 90% sureness from? Sue immediately became interested. He asked himself if there were any flaws, But how come Feng Zuli thought he was 80% or 90% sure? First of all, most of the Chinese people who come to Manila now are here to do business. If you want to travel, you will definitely make contacts in China before coming here to connect. How can you do this, coming directly to my door and saying you want to discuss a project worth tens of millions of yuan? Feng Zuli began to analyze. It could also be a cooperation, Su Wei argued. He really didn't understand this business. It was indeed a big failure to be so reckless. Okay. Even if you are here to discuss cooperation, but as soon as you walked in, I could tell that you don't look like a colleague at all. You didn't even dare to look me in the eye. It's obvious that you are guilty. Oh, Feng Zuli smiled like a flower. Huh? Su Wei snorted twice in annoyance. Dare to say that I am guilty? I know that you don't dare to look at Su Jin, right? In fact, the biggest flaw is here, a woman as beautiful as Su Jin. Any man can't help but take a few more glances, but you pretended not to see it, which makes it even more obvious. From this, it can be seen that you know Su Jin. For someone who knows me and Su Jin, the answer is obvious, Feng Zuli said as a matter of course. That's it. Su Wei was stunned. He really felt like he was shooting himself in the foot. Sure enough, he was not a professional. It was difficult to control these details. However, he had to admire Feng Zuli's meticulous observation. Perhaps this is also related to the nature of her job. In the tourism industry, you can come into contact with all kinds of people, and observing people's words and expressions naturally becomes a necessary skill. Boss, don't lose heart. In fact, I only have 10% or 20% doubts about the above 2 points. What really makes me sure is that Xiaoyi called me yesterday and said that you will come to see me soon and asked me not to run around. To sum up, so I am 80% to 90% sure, Feng Zuli explained honestly. Su Wei only then realized that there was a traitor. No wonder he was exposed so thoroughly. Boss, don't blame Xiaoyi, she is mainly worried that I will run around and get into danger. Seeing Su Wei's depressed expression, Feng Zuli hurriedly helped Xiaowei to excuse herself. I know, you understand now, we are all very worried about you, or, come back with me today. Su Wei also took the opportunity to persuade. Boss, can we not talk about this matter for now? Feng Zuli's expression instantly became lonely. That's fine. By the way, what is Su Jin doing here? Su Wei asked with a guilty conscience. Don't worry, she's not here to see you, she just came to take over, and she happened to meet me, so I invited her up to sit down. I guess she won't come again. Feng Zuli's face suddenly turned from gloomy to bright, and she looked at Su Wei and said with a smile. Oh, is that so? Su Wei scratched the back of his head awkwardly. Boss, can I ask you for a favor? After a short silence, Feng Zuli suddenly looked at Su Wei with expectation. You say? Su Wei felt that there was a chance when he heard it. Since you're here, can you stay with me here for 3 days? Feng Zuli stared at the man in front of her with a bold look. When she arrived abroad, her seal seemed to be broken. Su Wei was stunned, not understanding Feng Zuli's intention. Let me take you around in person. This is the route I spent a lot of effort to develop. You will be the first tourist, Feng Zuli explained persistently. At the same time, he added in his heart, he is also the only one. Okay, Su Wei nodded and agreed. It would not be too late to persuade her to go back later. Yeah, boss, you are so nice, Feng Zuli couldn't help shouting. Dong dong. Boss, are you okay? At this time, the voices of Xiaozhou and others came from outside the door, and they were obviously frightened by the sound. I'm fine, Feng Zuli hurriedly answered loudly. After hearing Feng Zuli's response, several people turned around and left with endless doubts. Boss, let's go. Feng Zuli couldn't sit still anymore, so she stood up and pulled Su Wei to go out. Go? Where to? Su Wei was confused. Of course, we're going to check the place. Time is precious. Let's go. Let's go. Feng Zuli released her nature and hugged Su Wei's arm. Okay. Su Wei had to activate the illusion again and turned into the way he came. Feng Zuli didn't mind at all, because she knew that Su Wei's current identity was extraordinary and he couldn't reveal his identity casually. Click. Seeing the office door open, Feng Zuli walked out with the guests. The small table, small stool, and small chair who had been waiting here finally felt relieved. Hey, that's not right. Why does the boss look so proud? What good thing happened? Little table, small stool, and small chair, you take care of the house. I'm going out for 2 or 3 days. Don't contact me if there's nothing to do. And don't contact me if there's something to do, Feng Zuli said as she pulled Su Wei downstairs like the wind. Anima? Is the boss crazy? The small table, small stool, and small chair were stunned by the shock. When they reacted and wanted to ask clearly, the two had already run away. Only a few people were left there, looking at each other. Running all the way, Feng Zuli brought Su Wei to her residence. A quiet courtyard. It looked quite old, but after being carefully decorated, it looked quite unique. Did you drive here? As soon as they entered the house, Feng Zuli took Su Wei directly to the bedroom. She took off her high heels and started to change her clothes. Su Wei was so scared that he turned around and didn't know whether to leave or stay. Yeah, I drove here, Su Wei replied quickly. That's good, Feng Zuli responded, and then there was no sound. The only sound left in the room was the rustling of clothes rubbing against each other. Chapter 336, The Sky and the Earth. Feng Zuli was very fast and didn't let Su Wei wait too long. She wore a light green long-sleeved t-shirt on her upper body, light blue tight jeans on her lower body, and a pair of khaki leather boots on her feet. Her long hair was tied up, revealing a charming swan neck. Her beautiful facial features looked very charming. Finally, she put on a brown cowboy hat, perfect. In a blink of an eye, she turned from an urban office lady into a wilderness expert. Boss, come and help. As she said that, Feng Zuli found a lot of equipment from the room. Tents, shovels, camping equipment, etc. Su Wei rolled his eyes. He had a lot of these things in his space, but unfortunately he couldn't say anything. He could only go over honestly, pack the things and move them to the car. Afterwards, Feng Zuli took Su Wei on a big sweep in the city and bought a lot of food, supplies, and spare parts. Basically, except for the cab and the co-pilot's room, other places were filled with things. In this way, under Feng Zuli's urging, the two of them didn't even have lunch and drove on their journey. Let me make it clear first, today's time doesn't count, 3 days, it has to start from tomorrow morning. On the way, Feng Zuli said to Su Wei in a calculated manner. Okay, you are the boss now, you have the final say, Su Wei smiled slightly. Since he's here, he should enjoy the rare vacation. By the way, he hasn't relaxed so thoroughly in a long time. That's more like it, but I dare not be your boss. What if I get fired by you? Feng Zuli got a positive answer, and then she felt relieved. She took off her small leather boots, slumped into the seat, and watched Su Wei driving with a look of enjoyment. The car was a modified off-road vehicle bought by Chu Haoyan for fun. It has good off-road performance, strong power, and is durable. The only disadvantage is that it consumes a lot of fuel, just like drinking water. But for Su Wei, that's not a problem. Several large tankers of the Red Sleeves Army are still stored in his space. You can drive as hard as you can, and it's no problem to travel around Maninia. Hey, didn't I say we don't need to eat? Su Wei's face was burned by Feng Zuli's eyes, and he quickly looked for a topic to talk about. The ancients said that beauty is a feast for the eyes. Boss, there's a beautiful woman next to you, are you still not full? Feng Zuli laughed and teased. Su Wei was speechless. Haha, just kidding, because the journey is quite long, the boss can only wrong you and make do with it, come on. Feng Zuli knelt in the seat and leaned to the back to find a box of biscuits, a bag of beef jerky, a bag of potato chips and 2 bottles of drinks. After unpacking, she fed a piece of beef jerky to Su Wei's mouth. Su Wei could only open his mouth like he was resigned to his fate, and 2 white fingers gently put the jerky into his mouth. In this way, Su Wei was responsible for driving, Feng Zuli was responsible for feeding, and occasionally she would eat a few bites herself. The first stop is the African savanna. On the boundless prairie, the sky's like an inverted giant bowl, giving people a refreshing feeling. The places Feng Zuli chose to stop were all wilderness. When night fell, lying together and counting the stars was a special pleasure. In 3 days, the two walked and stopped, visited the magnificent prairie, visited the mysterious tribe, and crossed a barren wilderness. They were like a pair of young lovers, sleeping on the ground and enjoying themselves. No, it should be said that it was, because under the influence of nature, the two completely released themselves, and did everything they should and shouldn't do without hesitation. Some things, when the atmosphere is right, will naturally come to fruition. Come on, have fun. Anyway, there is plenty of time. Happy times always fly by. 3 days later, Su Wei took Feng Zuli back to Mugisha. However, The relationship between the two was no longer the same as before, and they could often understand each other's thoughts with just a glance. However, Feng Zuli did not return to China with Su Wei in the end. She is an orphan who grew up in an orphanage. With hard work, she was admitted to middle school and then university. In order to complete her studies, she has been working part-time. In college, after meeting Xia Wei, the two had similar interests and became best friends and girlfriends. The two helped each other until graduation. When Xia Wei was about to take over Ziwei Group, she asked her if she was willing to help. Feng Zuli agreed without hesitation. She followed Xia Wei to Huidu City to work hard without hesitation. From then on, she had another identity, that is, confidant. It's just that God seemed to play a joke, making her fall in love with Xia Wei's man involuntarily. This made her feel guilty, so she ran to Menenia to hide. Now it's good, hiding has become liberation, which makes her have different feelings for this place. So, she chose to stay. In her words, if she goes back, she will be unhappy, so it's better to stay here and keep a thought. Su Wei has an industry here, and he has to come here from time to time to take care of it, so the two have the opportunity to get along. In this regard, Su Wei did not persuade her much, but stayed for another day, strengthened Feng Zuli to level 3, and then left her level 4 to 6 strengthening potions to let her improve slowly. At the same time, he left an emergency contact number, which was Cadman. If there is any emergency, you can call this number for help. After settling down, Su Wei set out on his way home. He did not return directly from Yugosha, but returned to Xinghu Weapon. Before leaving, he still had some things to arrange. First of all, in order to better exert the strength of the personnel, Su Wei put forward a requirement of forming an elite. That is, to select elites from the Xinghu army and form a Xinghu commando, which is similar to a special operations force, specializing in special tasks. Secondly, a batch of strengthening potions and energy potions were left to Chu Haiyan and others. While ensuring loyalty, expand the Xinghu army. The appearance of those skulls made him a little worried. He had to make some preparations in advance. In addition, it was about the production of weapons. Since it was basically completed in the wasteland, the task here was to purchase various raw materials. Su Wei left a special passage. After the raw materials arrived, they were transported to the underground warehouse for storage by special handling robots. When he came again, he would collect them and take them to the wasteland world. Then he would bring the finished weapons and parts from the wasteland world. After being assembled by the production robots here, they were transported to the factory on the ground from the conveyor belt. Then the workers would pack and package them. It looks like the Star Arsenal is a factory that operates normally. Anyway, in Menenia, star weapons are like the uncrowned king. No one will ask about them, and no one will check them. As long as it looks like that, it's fine. Chapter 337 Contest. The private plane Su Wei took off from Menenia, and after more than 10 hours of flight, it landed at a secret military base in the suburbs of Beijing. Before coming, Su Wei had contacted Old Xia. Taking advantage of this return flight, he also delivered the 100 sets of HX-1 power armor ordered by Daxia. Xiaohu. You've worked hard. As soon as he got off the plane, Su Wei saw Old Xia and Long Zhenyu who came to pick him up. It's not hard, old man. Why did you come in person? Su Wei hurried forward. Old man, isn't this to come and see his grandson-in-law? I can't persuade him. Long Zhenyu on the side couldn't help but joke. Su Wei was immediately embarrassed. Go away, be careful or I'll let Xiaohu cut off your supply, Old Xia immediately said to Long Zhenyu with a glare. No, Old Xia, isn't it okay if I'm wrong? Long Zhenyu's frustrated look immediately resolved the embarrassment on the scene. Both Old Man Xia and Su Wei burst into laughter. Play is fun, and fun is fun, but business is of course not spared. After the cargo hold of the plane was opened, 100 sets of HX-1 power armor stood neatly inside, like soldiers waiting for inspection, standing solemnly. Long Zhenyu had already called 100 Zhenlong soldiers to wait, and as soon as the hatch opened, everyone rushed forward. Due to limited space, they were basically packed one set next to another, and only 3 or 4 people could operate at the same time. So everyone lined up, one set each, and slowly walked out of the cargo hold in the HX-1 power armor, and then walked towards the hangar that had been prepared long ago. After accepting the order, Su Wei built 2 simulation cabins for Zhenlong, allowing them to train the pilots in advance. Now it seems that the effect is good, and the basic operations have been mastered. Xiaohu, how is it? Long Zhenai looked at Su Wei and asked with a smile. This is the enhancer made with 100 sets of advanced enhancement potions, all of which are gold level. Now it is a separate formation, codenamed Jianlong. These HX1 power armors will also be equipped to them first. Let them become another ace force in Hanlong's hands. Not bad, really good. Su Wei looked at him and nodded with some envy, which made Long Zhenai look complacent. It's good to have people. As long as there are resources, you can quickly form combat power, and under the cultivation of the environment, you don't have to worry about loyalty. Xiaohu, when can the second batch of advanced strengthening potions be provided? Everyone can't wait. Watching the soldiers drive a set of power armor into the hangar, Long Zhenai couldn't help but ask. Okay, I'll get it for you in 2 days. Su Wei immediately made the decision. The stronger Zhanlong is, the safer his family will be. Really, that's great. When Long Zhenai heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up. Minister Long, there is another new potion that corresponds to gold level and above. Are you interested in getting some? Su Wei suddenly asked Long Zhenai mysteriously. Get it? Long Zhenai nodded without saying a word. Come on, let's talk while we eat. Long Zhenai hurriedly took Su Wei and Old Man Xia to the cafeteria. Of course, there are also private rooms in the cafeteria, and they are small kitchens. The taste is comparable to that of a chef in a 5-star hotel. The meal was a great success, and Su Wei and Long Zhenai naturally reached a deal. Energy potion. 2 billion per bottle, limited to 50 per month. Strengthening potion. The price remains unchanged, the quantity remains unchanged, and it is supplied quarterly. Although the quantity is small, it is a long-term flow. 100 gold-level people are created every quarter, which means 400 people a year. What about 10 years later? By then, the special combat power of Daksha will be the sum of all countries in the world. This does not include the supermasters created by energy potions. Long Zhenai was naturally very happy and took Su Wei to swear brotherhood. Old Man Xia was just an ordinary person. After eating and drinking, he left early. Su Wei and Long Zhenai kept drinking. They went to rest contentedly until late at night. It was getting late, so Su Wei was not in a hurry to leave. He stayed in the military camp for one night and prepared to return to Huatou City early the next morning. The next morning, Su Wei was awakened by the loud military bugle call. Soldiers doing morning exercises were running and shouting on the playground, sweating their youth. Since he couldn't sleep anyway, Su Wei got up and strolled around the playground. He felt the atmosphere in the military camp. Soldiers passing by would salute Su Wei when they saw him. Although he was not a frequent visitor to Xianlong, he was definitely a guest of honor of Xianlong. He was the most awesome Xianlong supplier in history. Su Wei responded politely one by one, and seemed approachable. This made the soldiers of Xianlong have a very good impression of him. Brother Su, as he walked, Su Wei suddenly heard someone shouting and turned his head. He saw Long Zhenai wearing a training uniform, sitting in a corner of the playground doing warm-up exercises. Brother Yu, good morning, are you here for training too? Su Wei walked over. Haha no, I drank a little too much last night, so I came here this morning to get rid of the alcohol. I didn't expect you to get up so early too, Long Zhenai said with a smile. He is the one who feels refreshed when good things happen. With Su Wei's continuous supply of strengthening potions and energy potions, he is confident that Xianlong will become the #1 in Daksha and the world. I couldn't sleep after hearing the bugle call. Su Wei also smiled and replied. Brother, how about we play a few rounds? Long Zhenai said to Su Wei with an itchy face. Hearing from Shengwen Li that Su Wei was unfathomable, he had long wanted to experience him. It's just that they were not close before, so he was embarrassed to take action. After last night's heart-to-heart talk, both of them felt that they had met too late. Great. Su Wei immediately nodded in agreement. Come. Long Zhenai immediately took up his stance with joy, waiting for Su Wei to attack. Cannon hammer. Su Wei was not polite either, he exerted force on his feet and punched over with his hand. However, it was just a competition. This move was just a test, and he only used 30% of his strength. Bang! Long Zhenai directly used his arms to resist and easily block Su Wei's attack. Brother, just use your strength, I can handle it, Long Zhenai said immediately. This kind of painless attack posed no threat to him. Okay, brother Yu, be careful. Su Wei was immediately excited. He had dual strength attributes. Although he only used 30%, it was actually 60% of the strength of an ordinary king-level warrior. Unexpectedly, Long Zhenyu could easily defeat him. He seemed quite capable. How else could he be the Minister of War Dragon? This time, Su Wei increased his strength to 50%, which was equivalent to the full strength of an ordinary king-level warrior. Cannon hammer. It was still a simple and rough punch that hit Huanglong directly. Bang! Long Zhenyu was caught off guard and was shocked and took half a step back. Interesting, brother, come again. Long Zhenyu's eyes lit up. As expected, you can't judge a person by his appearance. Su Wei is so young, but he has such a powerful strength. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338. Those who understand will understand. The news of Su Wei and Long Zhenyu's fight spread like wildfire. Many soldiers who were in training were immediately attracted and soon gathered into a huge crowd. It has been a long time since Minister Long took action personally. What's more, the opponent is their recognized strongest supplier. This is even more interesting. Bang bang bang. The battle continued without any pause due to the arrival of the audience. Both of them were immersed in the joyful battle. Su Wei directly increased his strength to 70%, far exceeding the General King level. But he was still caught by Long Zhenyu one by one. However, the power of the dual attribute enhancement also made him a little uncomfortable, and he had to move his steps at any time to relieve some of the strength. In a blink of an eye, 100 moves have passed. It is true that you don't know until you fight, and you will be shocked when you fight. Su Wei has been maintaining a fierce offensive, but the speed is not slow but increasing, and it is getting faster and faster. It is obvious that he has not used his full strength. Long Zhenyu did not use his full strength either, but he has used 70% or 80%. What surprised him even more was that there was a faint trend that was about to be unstoppable. The soldiers around were fascinated. Although there was no ruthlessness and passion in a full-out fight, this kind of power duel was also very good. The key was to see many small fighting skills. In the case of equal strength, if used well, it can directly change the outcome. Stop. After 1,000 moves, Long Zhenyu hurriedly called for a stop. If he continued to fight like this, he would be forced to use his full strength. At that time, this training ground might not be able to bear it. You know, Long Zhenyu is in the early stage of the emperor level, known as the youngest emperor in history, with qualifications and experience different from ordinary people. Therefore, at a young age, he became the head of the War Dragon Special Operations Department, which can be regarded as a leader among the younger generation. Su Wei stopped freely. Some of them panted slightly and sweated. It felt refreshing. Beautiful, awesome, the soldiers around applauded and cheered. The sound was like thunder. Of course, it was unclear who they were applauding for, or maybe both sides. Oh my god, the two of them realized that they had become monkeys and were surrounded by people. Disperse, disperse, go back to training. Long Zhenyu hurriedly dispersed the crowd. If it weren't for my position, I really want to pull you to drink again, Long Zhenyu said to Su Wei with an unsatisfied look. Since he became the minister of Zhanlong, he has had fewer and fewer opportunities to take action. Although this is a good thing, people who practice martial arts will not only feel annoyed when they are idle, but also feel itchy. It's hard to scratch the itch, which is particularly uncomfortable. Haha brother there is a long way to go. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Su Wei smiled slightly. With his friendship with Zhanlong, he will have to come here more often in the future. That's right, Long Zhenyu laughed heartily. After taking a cold shower and changing into clean clothes, Su Wei boarded his private plane and flew to Huadu City. Only then did he know that the crew members on his 3 private planes were all elites selected from Zhanlong. The flight attendant Tao Wei was their team leader. Su Wei immediately exchanged contact information with her. In the future, if he needed to use the plane, he could contact her directly without having to pass the message through Shangguan Fair. 3 hours later, the plane landed at Huadu Airport. However, Su Wei went straight to the VIP lounge and did not leave the airport directly. Because on the way back, he saw the message sent by He Shuang. She also returned to Huadu from another province today, and her flight was more than an hour later than Sue. So Sue said that he would wait for her at the airport and then go home together. 2 hours later, a woman in a white dress and a cocky long windbreaker walked into the VIP lounge where Sue was. The slender legs and the curvy figure immediately attracted everyone's attention. Although there were not too many people in the lounge at this time, every one of them was attracted by her unique temperament. It was just that when they saw an extremely ordinary face, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. However, the girl didn't care about the eyes of the crowd at all, and scanned the lounge as if looking for someone. At this time, Sue, who was sitting in the corner, got up and walked over. He has also changed his appearance now, but through the magic, he can see that under that ordinary face, there is an angelic face. Shuang, Sue approached and whispered to the woman. "Wow, so you are here. It took me a while to find you." The woman was Shuang with the magic. She recognized her after hearing Sue's voice. Their magics were all shared by Sue, so they could see each other's true faces. It was just because Sue was sitting in the corner that she didn't notice it at the first time. "I'm going to give you a surprise." Sue smiled slightly, took Shuang's hand, and walked outside. This move immediately attracted the envious eyes of many men. What's wrong with ordinary appearance? A good figure is the hard truth. Those who understand will understand. This time, come back to rest for a few days. On the way to the parking lot, the two got together and chatted happily. "About a week, but I still have to rehearse a new song, so I don't have much free time." Shuang hugged Sue's arm, leaned her head on Sue's shoulder, and walked. It looked warm and sweet. Who would have thought that Shuang, a big star known as an angel, would have such a posture? Is that so? If you are too tired, take a vacation. Anyway, there is no rush. Sue reached out and patted Shuang's little hand, persuading her. Not tired. Not tired. Now I am the image ambassador of Zui Group. I can't ruin my own brand, right? Besides, it's good to be busy. I feel it's quite fulfilling. Shuang shook her head and refused. She didn't want to be a vase. Aren't you afraid that you will be exhausted? Sue smiled slightly. It is indeed a very pleasant thing to have and realize your ideal step by step. No, the strengthening potion you gave is very effective. Shuang looked up at Sue and said. That's good. By the way, where are Mei and the others? Sue asked casually. Of course they went to attract firepower, otherwise, how could I get away so easily? Shuang smiled. The fans' love is a bit crazy. Fortunately, with the magic given by Sue, she can get away safely every time. But the more this happens, the crazier the fans become. Perhaps the more mysterious things are, the more fascinating they are. However, as long as Shuang is not there, the fans will disperse quickly, and Mei Hongfeng and the others can get away quickly. The two walked and talked as they came to the parking lot. It turned out that Shengwen Weiner came to pick them up. Ever since Sue gave them two sisters strengthening potions and energy potions, this little girl has completely changed her view of Sue. She is like a horseman who let Boss Sue have the goods. If she can please Boss Sue and let a few energy potions slip out of her hands, wouldn't she be rich? Chapter 339 Long Wei seeks help. As it was past lunchtime, Sue and Shuang did not go back to Yunshujian directly. Instead, they went to Gishixuan for lunch. It was a pity that there was an extra light bulb, which made the two of them less sweet. However, Shangwen Weiner's straightforwardness brought them some happiness. After eating, the three of them went for a walk in the city and bought all kinds of things. They did not return to Yunshujian until the evening. Before getting off the car, Sue gave Shangwen Weiner some energy potions as a thank you. The little girl jumped up with joy. Although she did not knock a hole in the roof of the car, she knocked a big bulge. The car seemed to have grown an ear. But Shangwen Weiner, who got the energy potion, didn't care about anything else and drove away directly. She was going to go back and show off to her sister. The impatient look made the two of them smile. When they got home, they found that everyone was there. This seems to have become a routine. When someone returns from a long trip, there will be a small party. It is full of ritual sense of welcoming and washing the dust. The Su family dinner was a happy one. After dinner, Su Wei and Xia Wei took time to come to the middle courtyard. Sister Wei, Shirley plans to stay in Menenia. Su Wei told Xia Wei what happened. Okay, since she likes her current life, let her do as she pleases. Anyway, you'll take care of her in the future. I don't have to worry about it. Xia Wei rolled her eyes at Su Wei. The names have changed, isn't the meaning obvious? Su Wei had no choice but to greet her with a smile. Life returned to peaceful track. Xia Wei and others were busy with company affairs. Although Shuang was on vacation, she still had to rehearse new songs and accompany Mr. He in her spare time. Therefore, Su Wei was often alone. So, he started a life of going from one place to another. It is worth mentioning that after a brief silence, some countries led by the United States jumped out again, accusing Menini of being too radical in executing Liu Benin. The consequence of angering terrorists will only implicate more innocent people. At the same time, they accused the Starlight Army of violating the sovereignty of the other party in Iraq, and their actions were no different from those of terrorists. Even Iraq jumped out and stated several incidents of civilians being attacked. They said it with details, accusing the Starlight Army of all crimes. Unfortunately, there was no substantial evidence, so it was not very convincing. Su Wei directly posted a sentence on the official website: anyone who dares to slander the Starlight Army will be killed without mercy. As a result, the voice of Iraq disappeared completely. In the face of absolute strength, everything is illusory. This made the United States even more angry. After all, Iraq is its nominal younger brother, but it was frightened back by a word from others. Where is the face of its big brother? So the United States further exaggerated the hegemony and terrorism of Starlight weapons, and called on countries around the world to impose sanctions on Menini and Starlight weapons, so as not to raise a tiger for harm. However, this time, fewer countries responded to the call of the United States. Even if they couldn't save face, they just followed a banner in a hypocritical manner. In fact, they were just some insignificant measures and means. In short, it is harmless to Menini and Xinghu weapons. Menini, which is backed by Daksha, will basically not be affected by any sanctions. It can be seen that the prestige of the United States is gradually declining. Let some wavering countries more determined to stay away from the United States. It really shot itself in the foot. Although the sanctions are not painful, Su Wei has to prepare for a rainy day. In military terms, his Xinghu weapons can be fearless of anyone, but people's livelihood will still be strangled by others. So, with this problem, Su Wei went to the wasteland world again. The first problem to be solved is the satellite. After thinking about it, Su Wei decided to make his own satellite. What if one day, Lao Mi made up his mind and destroyed his satellite? Wouldn't he also be blind? When he heard that he wanted to build a satellite, Ji Tongguang's face was full of excitement. This will be a huge step on the road to technological recovery. With the technology of the wasteland, it is not difficult to build a satellite. If there is no catastrophe, the wasteland world will open up interstellar civilization. Therefore, building satellites is like eating and drinking water for them. However, the difficulty now is how to send satellites into space and how to operate them in the later stage. These require a huge amount of materials and manpower as a backing. However, once the satellite technology is restored, it will bring a qualitative leap to the Phaeton base. Boss, don't worry, I will definitely do my best to lead people to complete the task as soon as possible, Ji Tongguang patted his chest and assured Su Wei. Don't be so anxious, first complete the upgrade and repair of the Black Phoenix. Su Wei patted Ji Tongguang's shoulder to calm his excitement. Although satellites are good, they should not be put the cart before the horse. The mecha is the backbone of the base, so everything must be done on the basis of safety. Yes, boss, Ji Tongguang nodded and agreed. Anyway, the repair function of the Black Phoenix is nearing completion and will be completed in no time. After explaining the satellite, Su Wei was concerned about the progress of the Black Phoenix again, and the result was very gratifying. It will be completed in 3 days, and then a new round of testing will be carried out. Su Wei was naturally very happy. As for Feng Yunzi, she is now obsessed with the study of the strange stone and is rarely seen. After leaving the mecha hangar, Su Wei went to the medical department to find Qin Lao. He asked him if he could make a whitening potion. Qin Lao's answer was of course affirmative. Red, white, blue, yellow, black, purple, any color you want. It's just that some of the ingredients are different. Su Wei got the formula of the whitening potion on the spot. In addition to non-mutated medicinal materials, 4 mutant medicinal materials are needed, and they are not rare varieties, which is very good. After arranging the task of extracting mutant medicinal materials in the whitening potion for Qin Lao, Su Wei left the medical department leisurely. Beep beep. Not long after coming out, Su Wei's smart bracelet made a sound. Wireless communication has been realized in the base. Su Wei touched the bracelet and it was connected immediately. A virtual screen suddenly appeared in front of him, and Zhang Ling's image appeared on it, but at this time she was looking solemn. Xialing, what happened? Su Wei asked hurriedly. Su Wei, come to the Armed Forces meeting room. A request for rescue has been received from Longhu Base. Zhang Ling's eyes flashed with joy when she saw Su Wei, but she quickly hid it. Got it, I'll be there right away. Su Wei frowned and rushed to the armed forces. A request for rescue from Longhu Base? Is it a resurgence of the old unit? Or an invasion by foreign enemies? Or is it the Bloody Fortress? Chapter 340, Mentoring. Boss. When Su Wei walked into the combat command room, all members of the armed forces were there. Of course, Songdam from the logistics department was also present. What's going on? Su Wei asked after sitting down in the main seat. Brother, the soldiers of the reconnaissance company stationed at Longhu Base last night rushed back. The Blood Fortress has issued an ultimatum to Longhu Base, either surrender or perish, Yuna explained. It was indeed the Blood Fortress. Su Wei was mentally prepared and naturally would not feel surprised. Originally, the Blood Fortress and Ma Long had reached a preliminary agreement, but Ma Xiaoyu suddenly appeared. He directly rejected the agreement to cooperate with the Blood Fortress. This immediately angered the other party. How many people are coming from the other side? Su Wei asked. It is estimated to be tens of thousands, but they have a large number of armored forces, including power armor, armored vehicles and energy weapons. Some frontier camps of Longhu Base have been captured, Wang Bowen replied. Some images of war were projected on the conference table. This is the frontline video footage brought back by the scouts. You can see how fierce the battle was. The Longhu Base was almost crushed one-sidedly. It can be seen that the other side is deliberately creating pressure. They want to force Longhu to surrender, so the speed of advancement is relatively slow, but the means are extremely cruel. Wherever they pass, no piece of armor is left. Is this their power armor? Su Wei grabbed an image and enlarged it. A humanoid armor with a cube and a sphere appeared in front of him. It is so simple that there is no aesthetic sense at all. It looks like a crudely made unfinished product. Yes, boss, we found this power armor in the database of the Ministry of Science and Technology. Before the catastrophe, it was a civilian industrial power armor. It has two main functions. One is to protect personnel from mechanical damage, and the other is to increase the load. It is called Gongyao, which means a good friend of workers. Wang Boeing retrieved the relevant information he had searched. The image in the information is indeed very similar to the power armor captured by Su Wei. The Bloody Fortress has made a lot of modifications to it. The system has been optimized, new alloy armor has been replaced, and weapons have been added. Now it has been named Bone Crusher by the Bloody Fortress. It is named after the two hammers welded on its hands. However, the overall performance is still lower than our HT-1 power armor. They rely on numbers, and ordinary survivors can also equip them. Wang Bowen continued to explain. What are their energy weapons? Su Wei was concerned about the next question. It has not been revealed yet, but we can be sure that there are. Boss, look, this is the picture taken by the drone, Wang Bowen said and called up another set of images. I saw a team of more than 1,000 people in the rear of the battlefield, transporting and protecting a convoy. There were a total of 10 heavy trucks, and the objects on the trucks were covered with black cloth, so tightly that you couldn't see what was loaded on them. With so much trouble, there is no doubt that they are super weapons. You are here with bad intentions. Su Wei looked at those heavy trucks and was envious. Where did Phaeton's family assets come from? Did he pick them up by accident? The Bloody Fortress is mysterious and unpredictable. You can't go any deeper behind enemy lines. Su Wei was stopped by Zhang Ling before he could say anything. Right, boss. Based on the few words we have found out, we can see that the Bloody Fortress is a very ambitious guy. Longhu is just a start for them. They will never be satisfied with this. Therefore, we must proceed steadily, otherwise, we will fall into the trap of the Bloody Fortress. Wang Bowen and others also dissuaded him. Su Wei is the leader of the base and the spiritual pillar in everyone's hearts. If he has an accident, then Phaeton will be finished. Okay, so what is the current aid plan? Hearing what everyone said, Su Wei had to give up his idea temporarily. When he gets to the battlefield, he can just act according to circumstances. Boss, the plan we discussed before was that Minister Zhang and Minister Yu would lead 2,000 super soldiers to support the Longhu base. Wang Bowen said the previous decision. Everyone looked at Su Wei. The big boss was here, so of course he had to make the final decision. 2,000, not enough, add another 2,000 newly recruited soldiers, power armor will be supplied to them first. After thinking for a moment, Su Wei decided to increase the number of troops. At present, the population of Phaeton has reached more than 12,000, and the number of armed personnel has soared to more than 8,000. However, most of them are new recruits, and they need training and running in all aspects. Boss, this Wang Bowen hesitated a little. The casualty rate of new recruits on the battlefield must be very high. No need to say, it's decided. Phaeton needs to grow quickly, so it must go through the baptism of blood and fire, incorporate the new recruits into the team of veterans, and help them one-on-one, let them grow up quickly. Su Wei made the decision directly. The expected demon realm did not come to the door, but the blood fortress across a large province launched an attack in advance. This made him realize that crises are everywhere. And the best training method is actual combat. Yes, boss, Wang Bowen and others agreed immediately. There is no time to lose. A loud assembly call sounded in the Phaeton armed forces. It took about half a day for 4,000 super soldiers to gather and get ready. There were also special forces and reconnaissance teams. Su Xiaodong and Li Yanlei were among them. Xiaoling, Nana, be careful on the way, I'll be there to meet you soon. Tell Ma Xiaoi to defend Longhu base at all costs. Before leaving, Su Wei told the two girls. Yes, got it, brother. The two girls nodded to Su Wei and then closed the masks of their power armor. They didn't want him to see their tears at parting. But thousands of power armors took off at the same time, and the scene was spectacular. There was no declaration, no oath. Only the belief that they must win. The Phaeton Expeditionary Force once again set out on the road of expedition. Su Wei looked at the Phaeton Expeditionary Force that was gradually going away, but he couldn't be happy at all. These 4,000 sets of power armor almost emptied the Phaeton base. Now he could only work overtime overnight to rush the HT-1 model. The HX-1 model was directly discontinued, and Su Wei did not even touch the hundreds of sets of HX-1 power armor that had been produced. He kept them for emergency use. Although the armor of HX-1 was made of ordinary alloy, it was still stronger than the flesh. Another thing that needed to be done was the repair of the Black Phoenix mecha. It looked like it could not wait for 3 days. Thinking of this, Su Wei walked towards the mecha hangar again. Chapter 341 No Cure. Sister, why haven't the reinforcements arrived yet? On the north wall of Longhu base, Ma Xiaolin looked at the black smoke rising in the distance and asked with a worried look on her face. The black smoke meant that another survivor camp of Longhu's subordinates had been lost. It's only been 2 days since the news was passed. Even if the scouts arrived safely in Hudan, the reinforcements are just gathering now, and the army moves even slower. How could they arrive so quickly? Ma Xiaoyu seemed much calmer. Although Longhu is in a precarious situation now, the shadow of the man in her heart is still clear. As long as he is there, no problem is a problem. Alice, Ma Xiaolin could only sigh helplessly. This time, the army of the Blood Fortress came very suddenly and surrounded it directly. And threatened that as long as Longhu did not surrender, they would not accept the surrender of any survivor camp. Even issued a reward, whoever could knock on the door of Longhu base would be the future ruler of Longhu base. Faced with such temptation, some survivors were tempted and turned their guns to attack Longhu. Even in Longhu base, the situation was shaken. If it weren't for the remaining power of the 100 super soldiers left by Su Wei, the night attack on the palace might have been staged again. Don't worry, the boss won't give up on us, now we just need to protect Longhu in the palace, Ma Xiaoyu said confidently. Sister, you are hopeless, you were not like this before, Ma Xiaolin couldn't help complaining. Since Ma Xiaoyu followed Su Wei, she has become more and more different. Really, maybe this is the real me. Ma Xiaoyu was slightly stunned when she heard it. But then she laughed, and laughed very naturally. Ma Xiaolin was very upset. Sure enough, people in love are irrational animals. Okay, if you have this free time, you might as well follow me to patrol the military camp twice more. Only by stabilizing the army can we fight this battle well, Ma Xiaoyu said and walked towards the city wall. Ma Xiaolin shook her head and followed helplessly. After getting off the city wall, they saw Wu Nan with 100 super soldiers, ready for battle. Now, they have replaced the wolf cavalry and are responsible for protecting Ma Xiaoyu's safety. As for the wolf cavalry, they are responsible for guarding the palace. Captain Wu, you have worked hard, Please follow me to the military camp. Ma Xiaoyu walked up to Wu Nan and said politely. It's not hard, please. Wu Nan shook his head and said. She was just like that, straight to the point, without any extra words. Ma Xiaoyu smiled when she heard it, turned around and rode on the silver shadow and walked forward. Ma Xiaolin also rode her own mutant wolf. As for Wu Nan, she had her own power armor. A team followed Ma Xiaoyu and headed towards the military camp in a mighty manner. Along the way, Ma Xiaoyu would stop from time to time to chat with the people in the city and comfort everyone. Since she took over Longhu, she abolished slavery, and the original slaves were counted as citizens in the city. Housing and basic supplies were distributed, and the rest was based on labor. Therefore, the grassroots survivors were extremely supportive of Ma Xiaoyu. It's just that they don't have much combat power at the moment. However, seeing Ma Xiaoyu's calm appearance, everyone's worries can't help but fall back. Perhaps the queen in their minds really has a way to defeat the enemy. Thanks to the supplies left by Sui. Now that Longhu is closed, it can also temporarily stabilize the supply. In addition to the additional soldiers for defense, the rest of the soldiers are still insisting on training. It's just that there is more depression before the war, and there is no laughter and joy in the past. In this regard, Ma Xiaoyu has no other way. Just after a few words of encouragement as usual, he returned to the palace. Under the seemingly calm appearance, there is an undercurrent. In the Longhu military camp, a group of people gathered in a remote barracks. If you look closely, you will find that they are several backbones of the Longhu army. The leader is Wang Qi, the former leader of the Tiger Corps. But after Ma Teng admitted defeat, the Tiger Corps was disbanded and dispersed into the Longhu army. General Wang Qi was demoted 3 levels and became an ordinary captain. These people surrendered under pressure. If the Blood Fortress hadn't invaded, they would have been gradually isolated and faded from the center of Longhu's power. Unexpectedly, the Blood Fortress came so quickly. This made Wang Qi feel that their chance had come. Maybe they could seize the imperial power and start a new era that belonged to them. So, with such a vision, he contacted several people here and prepared to make a good plan. General Wang, the queen is gone. At this time, a soldier came in and brought back the news that Ma Xiaoyu had left. Everyone was obviously relieved. Although they wanted to resist, they felt unsure when they really had to face Ma Xiaoyu. It was not until now that everyone realized that they had a layer of cold sweat on their backs. Humph, look at you, you are so useless. Wealth and honor are sweat in danger. If you want to be successful tomorrow, you can't be so timid like today. Wang Qi looked at the relieved look of everyone and was immediately furious. Unexpectedly, in such a short time, Ma Xiaoyu's prestige has accumulated to such a level. If it is given more time, I am afraid that no one will dare to resist it. General Wang, we are just worried that the queen will find out the flaws, a tall and thin general with a pointed face explained awkwardly. Humph, this time, the Blood Fortress launched a large-scale attack on Xinghu, which is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Whether it succeeds or not depends on whether you dare to do it. Wang Qi did not pursue it and continued the previous topic. General Wang, the queen is now in full swing. Isn't it a bit unreasonable for us to raise an army? At this time, a short and strong general with a beard could not help but ask. Stupid, how did she get the throne? Don't you have any idea? Besides, Prince Ma Teng is the orthodox one. What do you mean by unreasonable? Wang Qi wanted to kick him twice. What a pig-like teammate. Oh, everyone thought it made sense, but they were still a little worried. Think about it, now the Blood Fortress has asked Long Wei to surrender before they will let go of all the survivors. You have all seen the killings these days. Faced with such a powerful enemy, she doesn't think about how to protect herself, but only wants to fight to the death and fight to the death. How many people will join her? To put it bluntly, if they can't beat them, can't they run away? 100 wolf cavalrymen will lead the way. And 100 super soldiers will protect them. Who can stop them? At that time, we will only become the targets of killing for the Blood Fortress to vent their anger. Think about it carefully. Wang Qi persuaded everyone earnestly. Hearing this, the doubts and awe in everyone's eyes gradually dissipated. In the wasteland world, there is hope only when you are alive. Chapter 342, Siege. The next day, the sky was gloomy, and there was a strong north wind. The sudden drop in temperature seemed to be a perfect portrayal of the current situation of Longhu Base. Last night, several groups of jealous survivors attacked the city wall. Although they were quickly cleared by the Longhu army, The crazy actions of the other side caused the Long-Hu army to suffer considerable casualties. This made the emotions of sadness and panic gradually spread in the army. All day long, tossing like this, even the strong can't stand it. Surround without fighting, gradually consume. This is the current strategy of the Bloody Fortress. They just want to create endless panic and make Long-Hu surrender. Even if Long-Hu's leaders do not surrender, the lower-level personnel will collapse in this endless torture. At that time, they can reap as much as they want. Early in the morning, Ma Xiaoyu, as usual, climbed to the top of the city to comfort the soldiers who were on guard. Looking at the messy battlefield, she announced on the spot that the dead would be buried with honor and the wounded would be rewarded. This pulled back the somewhat decadent morale. At this moment, Ma Xiaoyu couldn't help but feel a little powerless in her heart. 4 days had passed, and more than half of the supplies had been consumed. She didn't know how long she could hold out, but as the black smoke around her grew, she knew that the enemy's general attack was coming. Where was he at this time? Was he on his way? Would he come alone like he did that time when he rushed thousands of miles to save Xingling? Thinking about it, Ma Xiaoyu couldn't help but be a little dazed. Sister, look, at this time, Ma Xiaolin on the side suddenly pointed outside the city wall and shouted in surprise. Huh, what's wrong? This is, Ma Xiaoyu, who was in a trance, was suddenly awakened. Looking in the direction of Ma Xiaolin's finger, she saw yellow dust rolling in the distance, as if a large number of objects were approaching quickly. Quick, sound the alarm. Ma Xiaoyu's face changed drastically the next moment. This was clearly the army of the Blood Fortress attacking. Yes, Ma Xiaolin immediately ran to sound the alarm. Woo 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 woo. In an instant, a deafening alarm sounded in the Long-Hu base. The people hurriedly hid in the houses, and the armed personnel ran to their posts. The soldiers preparing for battle in the barracks rushed out of the barracks, gathered on the playground, and immediately rushed to the designated city defense area. What's wrong? The first one to rush up was Wu Nan, and she was accompanied by 100 super soldiers. The enemy is coming. Ma Xiaoyu looked at the rapidly approaching yellow dust without blinking. Prepare for battle. Wu Nan followed Ma Xiaoyu's gaze, and the long-sighted lens on the power armor immediately captured the figure in the yellow dust. The power armor composed of cubes and spheres was ugly and bulky. The running action was full of mechanical sense, but there were so many of them that there were thousands of them at a glance. It was the bone crusher that the scouts photographed. It can be seen from the huge hammers welded on their hands. These bone crushers surrounded a modified large armored vehicle and drove towards this side. Behind them were some modified off-road vehicles and troop carriers. There were a large number of armed personnel on it. The momentum was huge. Soon, the Long-Hu army rushed to the city wall and waited in full battle array. However, a large number of bone crusher rushed to the front, but did not launch an attack directly, but neatly arranged in formation, as if in a military parade. The modified large armored vehicle slowly drove up from the passage vacated by the bone crusher. It stopped about 200 or 300 meters away from the city wall. Ma Xiaoyu made a pause gesture, and the Long-Hu army on the top of the city stopped immediately, waiting in full battle array. Zizi at this time, the modified large troop carrier began to transform. Yes, transform. The front of the car sank, and the carriage unfolded, revealing a seat with an expanded shape. The seat slowly rose. A middle-aged man wearing a general's uniform and a pair of black leather boots sat on the chair, like a king, looking down on the heroes. He was the commander of the Blood Fortress army this time, Zhu Rui. He was also the representative who came to the Tyrannosaurus Rex base for negotiations before. After being sternly rejected by Ma Xiaoyu, he led his men back to the Blood Fortress to call for reinforcements. Actually, it's not really a call for reinforcements. Because the army is already on the way, no matter whether it's Ma Long or Ma Xiaoyu, no matter whether they agree to cooperate or refuse to cooperate, the army will arrive as scheduled and take over the Long-Hu base. For the Blood Fortress, they want absolute control. It's a pity that many people were kept in the dark and thought that it was Ma Xiaoyu's toughness that attracted the Blood Fortress's army. Zhu Rui, what are you doing here? Ma Xiaoyu saw the person coming and immediately understood something. It seems that the frontier positions in the north have been lost. I'm afraid today will be a decisive battle for life and death. What to do, Ma Xiaoyu? Don't you know what's going on? I told you, it's not up to you to agree or not. Any force will bow down to Bloody. You are such an ungrateful person. If you don't accept my toast, you'll have to drink a forfeit. Have you seen our army? It's only a matter of time before we can defeat Longhu. However, young Master Ying, considering your talent and beauty, wants to give you another chance. Open the gate and surrender before sunset today, and everyone will be spared. Otherwise, when the city is broken, it will be the day of massacre. Zhu Rui's voice came through the loudspeaker. Not only could it be heard clearly on the top of the city, but it could also be heard in the base. For a time, people were in a panic. Zhu Rui, put away your little thoughts. Even if I surrender, what does it matter? I will still be enslaved by you. Instead of living a dark life, it's better to die in battle. You want me, Ma Xiaoyu, to surrender? Dream on. Ma Xiaolin brought a loudspeaker, so that Ma Xiaoyu's voice could be heard by everyone present. The so-called young Master Eagle is the one who proposed to marry Ma Xiaoyu before. It is said that he is the son of an important counselor in the Blood Fortress. Although they have not met, he is threatening others with their lives, which shows that his character is not very good. Humph, you don't know what is good for you, Ma Xiaoyu. Anyway, I have brought my words. The result is up to you. Also, I would like to advise you all, it is better to live a miserable life than to die a good death. As long as you are obedient, we will treat you well in the Blood Fortress. Why should you follow a person with no future and die together? In the wasteland world, the strong are respected. You have also seen the strength of the Blood Fortress. Once you get our protection, you will have no worries about food and clothing. Bang! Zhu Rui, who was talking loudly, suddenly turned off the engine. Because the sniper under Wu Nan shot out the loudspeaker on the car. It's not that they don't want to behead and kill Zhu Rui directly. But Zhu Rui's body flashed blue light from time to time. You don't have to guess that this is just a holographic image, which is used to bluff people. Who knows where the real Zhu Rui is hiding? Chapter 343, Killing and Destroying the Heart. Sure enough, the loudspeaker was destroyed and there was no sound. Zhu Rui was still gesticulating and giving a speech, not realizing that it had become a silent performance. Looking at his funny movements, everyone wanted to laugh, but they couldn't. At this time, Zhu Rui's expression froze, and he was obviously reminded, and there was no sound. Then, his expression was very angry and very ferocious, but unfortunately, without sound, he couldn't express or vent. He only pointed at Ma Xiaoyu and made a gesture of wiping his neck. After that, they retreated. Yes. Without hesitation, they left calmly and in an orderly manner. It was like a fashion show. It gave people a feeling of thunder and rain. However, the people on the top of the city wall did not feel relaxed at all, but became more nervous. This is a murder. The target of the pressure is not Ma Xiaoyu, or even the Longhu army, but the survivors in the Longhu base. Their number exceeds the armed personnel by several times, and the consequences are disastrous. At that time, they will collapse without even attacking. Sister, what should we do now? Ma Xiaolin couldn't help but ask in a low voice in the dullness. Let's seal it off, she replied. Although this would divert some of the troops, there was nothing that could be done. To resist foreign aggression, we must first stabilize the country. A large number of soldiers were drawn out at once, and even the royal guards were dispatched to fill the vacancies. The morning passed peacefully. But everyone could feel that there was an invisible string in the Longhu base, which became tighter and tighter as time passed. Even though the sky had cleared, everyone still felt shrouded in haze. Ma Xiaoyu did not stay in the palace, but set up a tent in the square of the base and waited and watched. However, just after noon, someone could not hold back. Ma Teng led a group of people and walked towards the square. Sister, Ma Xiaolin's face changed. I know, see what they want to do. Ma Xiaoyu did not raise her head and continued to look at the electronic map in her hand. There were enemy distribution points drawn by the Hudang Reconnaissance Company on it, with detailed information such as the number of enemies and arms marked. Several scouts have already sacrificed their lives for this map. After hearing what Ma Xiaoyu said, Ma Xiaolin had to shut up in dismay. Ma Xiaoyu, Ma Teng changed his usual decadence and shouted arrogantly at Ma Xiaoyu in the shed. However, seeing the fully armed Wu Nan and the super soldier step forward, he also hurriedly stopped and stood a few dozen meters away. Wow, you've grown up, dare to call me by my name like that? Ma Xiaoyu closed the map, looked up at Ma Teng opposite, and asked leisurely. There was no intention of getting up. Ma Xiaoyu, stop being so weird here, your good days are over, everyone has discussed it, we want to live. Although Ma Teng was afraid of Ma Xiaoyu, after looking at the supportive and encouraging eyes of the people behind him, he suddenly felt like a savior and shouted loudly. We want to live, we want to live, we want to live. As soon as Ma Ten finished speaking, a group of people behind him echoed and shouted loudly. The surrounding soldiers were all attracted. Some civilians even looked out of the windows and quietly paid attention to the situation here. What a joke. Do you think you can live if you surrender? Ma Xiao asked back with a smile. The murderous aura of the forest was revealed on her body. Never overestimate human nature. Seeking benefits and avoiding harm is instinct. Only eternal strength is the truth. Then you don't have to worry about it, Ma Xiao. We all know how you got the throne. Isn't it because of that Sui? Now, the army of the Blood Fortress is coming. Where's he? I guess he is afraid and hiding. Ma Ten began his performance. His words immediately caused Wang Qi and others to laugh. Although the laughter was very fake, the atmosphere was finally a little bit better. Asshole, Wu Nan led his men to rush up and teach this group of shameless people a lesson. Stop. At this moment, a group of thousands of people rushed out from the streets and alleys and surrounded Ma Xiao and others. Among them were the people of the Tiger Legion. Although Wu Nan was not afraid of these people, in order to ensure Ma Xiao's safety, she had to stop again, shrink the formation, and protect the people in the middle. Ma Ten, if you have something to say it quickly, and if you have something to say, fart quickly. I don't have time to listen to your chattering, Ma Xiao said to Ma Ten with a gloomy face. I say so, it's all for sale anyway. Why don't you sell it to young Master Ying? You can gain more power, and we can continue to survive. The best of both worlds, why not? Ma Ten continued with a smug look. In the eyes of outsiders, Ma Xiao must have used her beauty to trade with Sui, otherwise who would work for her for no reason? Shut up, it's not your turn to care about my business. Ma Xiao was so angry that her face turned blue. Although she didn't mind such things, she couldn't tolerate anyone slandering Sui. This is her, Ma Xiao, who will use all her strength to protect the people and things she has identified. How you hit the nail on the head, Ma Xiao. Just surrender obediently. Ma Ten thought he had the upper hand and seemed extremely proud. When God closes all the doors, he will definitely open a window for him. Captain Wu, this is our internal matter, you don't have to get involved. As long as you don't interfere in this matter, we will pretend that we have never seen it. You can leave on your own. How about this? After Ma Ten finished speaking, Wang Qi on the side immediately took over. He persuaded Wu Nan on the side. Boss, the task given to us is to protect Ma Xiao. If you want to touch her, you have to step over our bodies, Wu Nan said, closing the mask, and looked like he didn't want to talk. Wang Qi persuaded in vain, very embarrassed. Humph, Captain Wu, don't think that we can't do anything to you just because you are wearing an iron shell. No matter how powerful you are only 100 people, and we are the entire base. We can pile you up to death, Wang Qi roared. Thousands of people gathered around again. This time, even the street guards began to waver. Judging from the current situation, although resistance might lead to death, following Ma Xiao will definitely lead to death. In such a matter, if someone takes the lead, there will be no shortage of people following. Especially under the pressure of foreign enemies, someone opened the door and walked onto the street. Seeing that no one intervened, more and more people came out of the house. Although nothing was said, this was already a blatant defiance of the Queen's order. Chapter 344 is coming. Ma Xiao, what do you think? He who knows the current situation is a hero. Now everyone in the base doesn't want to die, shouldn't you sacrifice for them? Ma Ten felt unprecedented pride as he watched more and more people support him. This was an honor that his father could not give him when he was still alive. Humph, extremely foolish. Ma Xiao calmed down instead. Human nature is like this, there is nothing to be angry about. If the Blood Fortress really wanted to cooperate, how could the army come so quickly? Unfortunately, there are almost no people who can see this clearly. No, maybe there are some who can see it clearly, but they don't care anymore. Crash. I don't know who took the lead, and the people on the street knelt on the ground one after another. They were grateful to Ma Xiao for liberating them, but relatively speaking, they hoped to be alive. Alice Ma Xiao shook her head with regret. Mud can't be helped against the wall, which is probably how to describe these people. No wonder Su Wei didn't immediately transfer people to the Phaeton base. It seems that he had foreseen it. Thinking of what he saw and heard in Phaeton, Ma Xiao felt a lot in his heart. Perhaps only such a man can build such a base and train such soldiers. Ma Xiao looked at Wu Nan and others who were standing in front of her, and her lost heart felt better. Captain Wu, It's not too late to regret now. If you are afraid that you can't deliver the mission, just follow me. Ma Ten, will never treat you unfairly. Ma Ten turned around and dug the corner. The super soldiers were more powerful than his father's Tyrannosaurus Rex Legion. If they had their protection, it would be perfect. Unfortunately, he underestimated the loyalty of the Phaeton army. Facing groups of enemies, he still couldn't make them surrender. This is the result of Wang Bowen's brainwashing training. Of course, there is also a big part of the reason. They are all old men of the Phaeton army. They followed Su Wei to fight east and west, and have absolute confidence in their boss. They also believe that reinforcements will arrive soon. By then, what bloody fortress? What bone crusher? All can only be regarded as younger brothers. Prince, it's getting late, delay will change. Seeing that Wu Nan didn't even pay attention, Wang Qi quickly spoke up to help Ma Ten resolve the embarrassment. HMPH, you don't know how to appreciate my kindness. Let me tell you, the wolf cavalry has been trapped in the palace, so, don't expect anyone to come to rescue you. Someone come. Whoever captures Ma Xiao alive will be rewarded with a position of general, Ma Ten shouted immediately. He was about to stand out, how could he not be excited? If he didn't know that he was not as strong as Ma Xiao, he would have wanted to rush up to avenge his previous shame. But even if he wanted to rush up, Wang Qi and others would not agree. Because he still had to carry the banner of the leader of the base and accept all kinds of difficulties from the bloody fortress on their behalf. Kill, a big reward will always bring brave men. Several young men rushed up immediately. Wu Nan's face changed, and he waved his hand to order people to take over. It seems that a fight is inevitable. Captain Wu, you guys break through, don't worry about me. Ma Xiaoyu looked calm and slowly drew out the long knife beside him. Blood needs hot blood to awaken. I will never give up the boss's order, even if I die. Wu Nan's answer was simple and clear. Then let's go together. Ma Xiaoyu didn't say anything more, and prepared to fight with a knife. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Suddenly, a special gunshot sounded, and the young men who rushed in front had their heads blown off one by one. The headless body continued to rush forward for a few meters before suddenly falling down. The head was instantly annihilated by the white light, and the wound was burned by the extremely high temperature, without a drop of blood. Such a change made both sides stunned. The blood fortress attacked in advance. Buzz buzz buzz. Before everyone could guess, a dense buzzing sound came, as if a group of bumblebees were attacking. Then, groups of super soldiers wearing HT-1 power armor flew in from outside the city wall, covering the sky and the sun, and there were thousands of them. Seeing the familiar armor and Phaeton icon, Ma Xiaoyu and Wu Nan smiled immediately. On the contrary, Ma Ten and Wang Qi looked ashen. They never dreamed that Phaeton actually had so many armed power armors. So it seems that they may not lose the battle against the Blood Fortress. Others were mixed with joy and sorrow, wondering what would happen next. Beep beep beep. At this time, the loudspeaker sounded. Warning, from now on, Longhu Base is fully taken over by the Phaeton Expeditionary Force. Martial law in the whole city. All non-armed personnel must return to their rooms and not go out. Armed personnel must gather at the training ground. If anyone disobeys the order, he will be executed on the spot. Zhang Ling's crisp and cold voice came and drilled into everyone's ears. Under the pressure of thousands of super soldiers, who dared not obey? Soon, Longhu Base returned to peace. Only a group of people led by Ma Ten were left in the square. Wang Qi and others wanted to take advantage of the chaos to return to the training ground. But they were surrounded by Wu Nan and his men. This is really, things are unpredictable, and the big intestines are wrapped in small intestines. With two bangs, two sets of unique power armor fell from the air to the square. One set of ice blue and one set of fiery red. It was a power armor specially customized for the ice and fire duo by the Phaeton base. Minister Zhang, Minister Yu. As soon as the two landed, Wu Nan ran forward. Captain Wu, you've worked hard. The visor of the ice blue armor fell off, revealing Zhang Ling's icy beauty. It's not hard, please give me instructions. Wu Nan also put down the visor and looked at Zhang Ling with a serious face. Now Zhang Ling has the highest position, so her actions naturally need to be approved. Who are they? Zhang Ling looked past Wu Nan and looked at Ma Ten and others who were surrounded by 100 super soldiers. Report, Minister, they are the planners and instigators of this rebellion. Wu Nan then told the identities of several people. When Zhang Ling heard that the leader Ma Teng was Ma Xiaoyu's younger brother, she couldn't help but frown. Minister Zhang, don't worry, I know how to deal with this matter. Ma Xiao held a sword and slowly walked towards Ma Teng and others. Do you need help? Although Zhang Ling didn't like Ma Xiao, she must unite against the enemy now. No need. Ma Xiao shook her head proudly. Among the group of people, only Wang Qi could fight with her. Mama, sister, it was all Wang Qi's instigation. I was confused for a moment. Please forgive me this time. Looking at the murderous Ma Xiao approaching step by step, Ma Teng instantly became a coward. He was so scared that he kept begging for mercy. Forgive. Too late, Ma Xiao said as she raised her hand and stabbed Ma Teng in the chest with a knife. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345, Taking the Initiative. Puff. It was not until the severe pain in his chest came that Ma Teng looked at Ma Xiao with disbelief. She had killed him without hesitation. Although their family had let her down, they had grown up together after all. Wake up, I didn't kill you before, and I've done my best. I didn't expect that at the critical moment, you would come out to cause trouble, so, just go with peace of mind. Remember, don't let others use you as a gun again. Ma Xiao's voice was very cold. Ma Teng's face turned pale, and his eyes gradually dimmed. There was a strong sense of unwillingness and regret. It's a pity that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't keep the lost life. Originally, he could continue to live happily in the palace, but he jumped out to his death. As a result, he killed himself. Plop. Ma Xiao drew out his sword, and Ma Teng, who had no support, fell to the ground and turned into a cold corpse. Queen, spare me, Queen, spare me. It was all Wang Qi who instigated us. It's all him. The rest of the people were so scared that they turned pale and knelt down to beg for mercy, accusing Wang Qi, the culprit. Humph, you useless people, you are slandering me. Wang Qi was so angry that his face turned red, and he raised his hand to grab those people. It looked like they were going to fight to the death. Then, halfway, Wang Qi suddenly turned around and suddenly attacked Ma Xiao. Bang! Ma Xiao was naturally not careless and had been staring at him. Seeing the opponent attacking, she chopped over with a sword in her hand. Wang Qi stretched out his hand to block it, and sparks flew everywhere. It turned out that he had a pair of new alloy arm guards under his clothes, which could withstand a blow at a critical moment. Ma Xiao's sword was blocked, and Wang Qi continued to attack with his other hand. It seemed that he was about to succeed. Ma Xiao did not retreat but advanced, shrinking her whole body and crashing directly into Wang Qi's arms. An alloy dagger slipped out of her sleeve and stabbed fiercely. Ah! Wang Qi screamed and retreated. Ma Xiao took the opportunity to grab the falling sword. She continued to advance, the sword flying and the dagger piercing. Wang Qi was beaten back step by step. In the end, the 5-star General Wang Qi was beheaded by Ma Xiao. Originally, the two were evenly matched. But now the environment is different. Wang Qi not only has to deal with Ma Xiao's attack, but also has to be careful of the surrounding Phaeton army and look for opportunities to escape. The consequence of not being able to concentrate on fighting is naturally a tragic defeat. Alice. At this time, the wolf cavalry also rushed over. Seeing that their queen was unharmed, they finally put down their worries. Sister, what about this person? Ma Xiaolin looked at the remaining people and asked hatefully. Kill. Ma Xiao threw the bloody sword and dagger in her hand directly. Then she walked towards Zhang Ling and Yuna on the side. Minister Zhang, Minister Yu, since you two are here, let me show you around. Ma Xiao, who had just killed someone, immediately came up to greet them with a smile. This operation made Zhang Ling and Yuna shudder. The war is imminent, there is no need to tour, just prepare for the battle. Zhang Ling refused coldly. Okay, then I will treat you two well after the battle is won. Ma Xiao did not insist, and immediately took the two to the training ground. Those wavering soldiers still need pre-war mobilization to ensure that they will not collapse again. Ma Xiaolin led the wolf cavalry here to execute the remaining generals on the spot. Begging for mercy and screams resounded through the sky. Let the survivors hiding at home tremble. A deep-rooted sense of fear made them lose their dissatisfaction in an instant, and they honestly carried out the martial law order. Report to the commander. A team of thousands of armored soldiers broke through our southern defense line and entered Longhu base. A soldier wearing the uniform of the Blood Fortress rushed into the combat command room of the temporary camp in a panic. What? Armored soldiers? How many? In the command room, Zurui, the commander-in-chief in charge of this operation, was sitting on his feet and drinking tea. After hearing the soldier's report, he almost fell to the ground. The teacup in his hand was not so lucky and fell upside down on the ground. The freshly brewed hot tea was instantly spilled all over the ground. The enemy is fast and has strong firepower. It is impossible to determine their number, but it is estimated that there are at least thousands of them, the soldier replied hurriedly. Who are they? Zurui frowned immediately. If there are really thousands of armored soldiers, this will wipe out the advantages of the Blood Fortress. You know, the total force of the Blood Fortress this time is not as much as that of the Longhu base. It relies on the Bone Crusher, which has strong defense and penetration capabilities. The Bone Crusher serves as the front row, and the armed personnel will harvest later. This kind of tactics is always effective. From the style of the armor, it's very similar to the Queen's Guard of Longhu base, so it is speculated that their reinforcements may have arrived, the soldier said as he pulled up a video and presented it to Zurui. A large number of HT-1 power armors flew by at low altitude and directly swept the positions of the Blood Fortress with covering firepower. The whole process took only more than 10 minutes. Such terrifying speed and firepower are unprecedented. Fuck, military type. Seeing the power armor on the video, Zurui's eyes opened as wide as possible, and his mouth opened as wide as possible. Their Blood Fortress only had civilian power armor, but it swept all the survivors of a large province. The other side actually had military power armor. What kind of existence is this? You know, civilian and military types are simply incomparable, even if they have been modified. This is not a problem that can be solved by changing the vest. The two were not designed at the same level from the beginning. One is for labor, and the other is born for fighting. Commander, what should we do now? The soldier couldn't help but ask. It was past noon, and there was still a long time before the sun set. Should we continue to wait? Boom. At this moment, a violent explosion sounded. Then, a shrill alarm sounded throughout the camp. Enemy attack. Fuck, the other party actually took the initiative to attack. Zurui didn't expect the other party to come so quickly. But thinking of the military power armor that can fly at low altitudes in the video, he was relieved again. It's really not the same level. I felt that the Bone Crusher in my hand was not fragrant in an instant. Order all units to quickly move closer to us. Zurui gave the order without hesitation. Yes, Commander, the soldier ran out in a hurry. Zurui also rushed out of the big tent. The camp of the Blood Fortress is set up in a small survivor camp. The survivors here were brutally killed, and their bodies were still hanging on the high walls outside. It shows the majesty of the Blood Fortress. However, at this time, the high walls were like paper under the artillery fire of the Phaeton Expeditionary Force. Chapter 346 Bloody Glory. When Zurui rushed out of the command room, the battle was already going on outside. Commander, the enemy is coming in. At this time, an adjutant ran over in a hurry, his face covered in dust and dirt. Obviously he had just been hit by a cannon. What? Are those guys on the front line eating shit? Zurui was so shocked that his hair stood on end. How could it be so fast? Commander, the enemy's firepower is too strong, and the speed is too fast. Brothers can't stop it at all, the adjutant said with a sad face. Bullshit, quick, let the Bone Crusher take over, Zurui shouted anxiously. This caught him off guard. Yes, Commander, the adjutant immediately ran to pass the order. Zurui led the guard company to the battle point. I saw that a large part of the camp's wall had been blown down, and the enemy's power-armored soldiers had already attacked. The front row was the HT-1-1 Guardian. It not only enhances the thickness of the armor, but also equips a new alloy shield the size of a door panel, which can be folded and carried on the back at ordinary times, and looks very tough. For this reason, it sacrificed many weapons, retaining only the chainsword and a plasma-cutting dagger, but its defense ability is amazing, and it is known as the indestructible cockroach. Following closely behind is the HT-1-2 Raider. The armor is of medium thickness, and the highlight is that it has an excellent weapon-carrying platform, which can be equipped with a large number of weapons, can be used for close combat and long-range attack. It is the model with the strongest comprehensive performance and is also the backbone of the super soldiers. Then there's the HT-1-3 Sweeper, which is stationed hundreds of meters away. The armor is medium, and all the weight is given to two shoulder-mounted launch units. It is equipped with a rocket called Swarm, which is based on the medium and long-range cruise missile Swift, but the range is only 3 kilometers. Since there is no satellite or other navigation system in the wasteland, Swift can only be used as an ordinary rocket. Therefore, when the base was produced, a castrated version was produced, removing the guidance system and retaining the power part and combat part. Because the attack distance does not need to be too far, the size of the Swarm is smaller. A launch unit of the same size as the Swift is loaded with 5 rounds, while the Swarm can do 50 rounds, which is a full 10 times increase. Each sweeper can also load 2 additional spare launch units, that is, each sweeper can carry 200 rounds of Swarm rockets and fire 100 rounds at a time. When a certain scale of sweepers fires a volley, the scene is extremely spectacular. This time, there were only 10 sweepers. But just a round of volleys not only directly destroyed the frontier positions of the Scarlet Fortress, but also blasted open the tall city walls. Ordinary soldiers, in front of the sweepers, are just like ants. Here I mentioned that the sweepers were originally designed to resist the tide of corpses, but now it seems that they are also effective against humans. After all, the wasteland world is short of resources, and not everyone can be as rich as the Phaeton base and equip all power armor. For other bases, let alone power armor, even decent protective gear is scarce. That's why a civilian bone crusher can be so arrogant. Looking at the Phaeton Expeditionary Army with clear division of labor and complete equipment on the battlefield, Zurui's face turned pale. Boom, boom. At this time, the Bone Crusher Army finally arrived at the battlefield, and the heavy armor finally stopped the Phaeton Expeditionary Army's advance. Unfortunately, the Bone Crusher only had melee weapons. The sledgehammer hit the Guardian shield and sparks flew, but it was just a blast without any substantial damage. Although it gave the soldiers of the Scarlet Fortress a chance to output, their firepower was ineffective against the armor of the assaulters, let alone the Guardians. In addition, there was a rare HT-1X type special super soldier active on the battlefield, codenamed the Fierce Ghost. It was equipped with a nearly 2-meter-long super electromagnetic sniper rifle with a range of 3,000 meters and terrifying power. It can tear all known physical armor, even the Guardian's alloy shield. Bone Crushers are naturally no exception. Every time they shoot, they will take away a Bone Crusher. Of course, you can't use it to fight mechas, that's definitely not possible, it's not on the same level at all. In terms of armor, compared with the previous models, the Fierce Ghost goes the other way. It is a light armor, mainly strengthening the power and camouflage performance. The light armor is loaded with the latest camouflage hiding module, which allows the wearer to have similar abilities to Suzaedong, and achieve the effect of invisibility through the folding and reflection of light by the armor. The driver of the Fierce Ghost chose a uniform speed evolver, and at the same time trained sniper expertise, and is a sniper among super soldiers. However, the Fierce Ghost also has a weakness, that is, the energy consumption of the super electromagnetic sniper rifle is very high, so Fang Yunzi synchronized its energy module to the energy center of the armor. In this way, although the energy supply of the super electromagnetic sniper rifle is guaranteed, when shooting, the armor will lose its stealth ability due to the momentary lack of function. However, for snipers, after a shot, whether it hits or not, they usually have to transfer, so the impact of this shortcoming is not great. How long will it take for the army to gather? Seeing the Bone Crusher fall down after being shot in the head, Zurui was keenly aware of the crisis. He grabbed the commander's hat and tore off his shirt. Report, Commander, the East and West divisions will arrive at the battlefield in 30 minutes. More than half of the southern divisions have been killed or wounded. The remaining personnel are expected to arrive in an hour, the adjutant beside him hurriedly replied. 30 minutes, Zurui frowned as he looked at the falling Bone Crusher. Originally, he brought 6,000 Bone Crusher, but in order to form an encirclement of Longhu base, he divided his troops into 4 groups. Among them, 1,000 Bone Crusher were assigned to each of the East, West and South. So, Zurui only had 3,000 Bone Crusher on hand. The opponent's super soldiers also had at least 3,000. From this point of view, the Blood Fortress was not superior in both quantity and quality. It didn't even take 30 minutes. In another 10 minutes, it might be defeated. By then, even if the other 3 divisions arrived, they would be defeated one by one. Adjutant Lee, a hint of ruthlessness flashed in Zurui's eyes. Here, Commander, the adjutant responded immediately. From now on, I appoint you as the temporary commander of the battlefield. Make sure to hold on for more than 30 minutes. The glory of the bloody fortress depends on you, Zurui ordered with a tragic look on his face. Yes, Commander, the adjutant was immediately as if he had been injected with chicken blood. Then, Zurui quickly evacuated to the rear of the battlefield under the protection of the guard company. Brothers, as long as the people are in the position will be, defend the bloody glory to the death. Hearing the shouts of Adjutant Lee behind him, Zurui couldn't help but smile with relief. Chapter 347 Flame Demon. Swoosh, 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 boom, boom, boom. Not long after Zurui left, the sweepers started the second round of volleys. Although the rockets had limited lethality to the heavy armor of the Bone Crusher, they could effectively kill the annoying flies hiding behind the Bone Crusher. Even the adjutant who had just been appointed as the temporary commander was blown to pieces within the range of firepower coverage. Taking advantage of the time of firepower coverage, the assaulters took the opportunity to outflank the Bone Crusher from both sides. At the same time, the fierce ghosts also infiltrated and killed the Bone Crusher at will. At this moment, the Phaeton Expeditionary Force had already occupied an overwhelming advantage. The sweepers retired after their success and went back to replenish ammunition. Each sweeper was equipped with a professional supply team to ensure the sweeper's ammunition supply, as well as the repair and replacement of consumable parts. So, don't look at the sweepers' domineering and majestic appearance, they are all made up of supplies. Not every base can afford to support them. The isolated and helpless Bone Crusher collapsed immediately. They had never encountered such a situation before, and they were immediately in disarray. They just wanted to break out of the encirclement, but they bumped into countless companions and a serious stampede occurred. The armor of the Bone Crusher of the same tonnage was dented with one kick, and the driver inside was squeezed to vomit blood. Others were directly stimulated to madness by the tragic death of their companions, wielding their sledgehammers violently and attacking all around indiscriminately. As one side gained strength while the other lost, the Blood Fortress was naturally defeated. Just as Zurui expected, it only took 10 minutes. The Phaeton Expeditionary Force occupied the temporary command post of the Blood Fortress, and none of the Bone Crusher were left alive. They now had no extra troops to guard the prisoners. Minister Zhang, this is the enemy's command post, but it seems that the enemy's commander should have escaped in advance, in Zurui's former command room. Su Xiaodong, wearing a fierce ghost armor and carrying a super-powered electromagnetic sniper rifle, reported to Zhang Ling. Well, search everywhere. See if there are any clues. Looking at the neat command room, Zhang Ling, who was wearing a customized blue armor, gave the order in a cold voice. The enemy left in a hurry and didn't even pack up. Yes, Minister Zhang. Su Xiaodong immediately led people to search nearby. Minister Zhang, congratulations on your victory, Ma Xianwei, who was accompanying him, said to Zhang Ling with a smile. She was also shocked by the tactics of the raid on the Scarlet Fortress base camp. Unexpectedly, Zhang Ling, who has always been taciturn, is also a strategic master who can very keenly grasp the opponent's weakness. The result was similar to what she expected. The Scarlet Fortress army was divided into many places, resulting in a somewhat empty base camp. In addition, the excellent performance of the HT-1 power armor broke through and captured the base camp in the shortest time. In this way, even if other Scarlet branches came, it would not be enough. Congratulations, it's too early. Intelligence shows that the enemy has a super weapon. The commander left in such a hurry instead of commanding the battle. He must have gone to activate the super weapon. Next, the real test, Zhang Ling replied expressionlessly. As she spoke, she flipped through the things on the table to see if there were any unexpected discoveries. Yunao did not come with them this time, but stayed at the Longhu base with Ma Xiaolin to prevent accidents. Zhang Ling left her 1,000 Phaeton Expeditionary Forces. In addition to guardians, assaulters, sweepers and ghosts, there was also a team dedicated to Yuna. They were soldiers equipped with HT-1-4 power armor, known as flame demons. The heavy armor and super-powered plasma flamethrowers made them like demons that could control flames. Even if the flames could not penetrate the armor, the ultra-high temperature that soared instantly would cause permanent damage to relatively fragile components, such as circuits, thereby making the target unable to move. At the same time, the ultra-high temperature could also cause varying degrees of damage to the driver. Super weapons. With the current strength of the Phaeton Expeditionary Force, ordinary super weapons are not enough. Ma Xiao smiled slightly and also started to search in the command room. However, most of the things were from the original base leader. There were not many clues to find. Minister Zhang Zurui went north. After a while, Su Xiaodong ran in from outside. Their drone tracked the traces of Zurui's convoy, but was killed by a sniper ambushed in the dark. Obviously, Zurui had a backup plan to prevent being chased. Clear the battlefield quickly, and then rush east. Prepare for the next battle, Zhang Ling gave the order after a little thought. The super weapon is unknown, and the risk of chasing Zurui is too great. Then we will fight again and eliminate the enemies on the eastern front. By then, there will only be one enemy on the western front. We can concentrate on dealing with the unknown super weapon. Yes, Minister. Su Xiaodong turned around and ran to pass the order. The so-called battlefield cleaning is just to confirm whether all the enemies are dead, and to destroy some defense facilities and heavy weapons to prevent them from being used again by the enemy. As for the spoils of war, they are left in place and need to wait until the final victory before they can be collected. Because there is still a fierce battle to be fought next. So, after a short rest, the Phaeton Expeditionary Force rushed to the battlefield on the eastern front again. The Eastern Front Blood Army, which rushed to the side in a hurry, was not slow either. The two sides soon encountered each other. The Blood base camp with fixed defense lines and positions only lasted for more than 10 minutes, not to mention that the Eastern Front Army, which had less than half of its troops and was rushing rapidly. It was almost to collapse at the touch of a button. The Blood Army, which lost its commander, collapsed thousands of miles away and was chased and killed by the Phaeton Expeditionary Force for several miles. Although the Eastern Front Blood Army failed to be completely wiped out, only one or two of them escaped. Another great victory. However, at this time, the crisis alarm sounded at the Longhu base. Without caring about cleaning up the battlefield, Zhang Ling and others immediately led everyone and rushed into the Longhu base from the nearest east gate. Nana, what's going on? After entering the base, Zhang Ling led people straight to the north gate. On the top of the city wall, Yuna, who was wearing a fiery red armor, was found. Sister Xiaoling, the opponent's super weapon has been deployed. Yuna pointed outside the city wall with a bad face and said to Zhang Ling. Zhang Ling and others looked in the direction of the sound and were stunned. In the distant sky, a huge figure was walking towards this side. Although the movement was slow, because of its huge body, the speed was naturally not slow. In the blink of an eye, the whole picture could be seen with the naked eye. It was a humanoid mecha that was much taller than the Black Phoenix. Compared with the agile and slender Black Phoenix, this thing was heavy and bloated. But its destructive power was absolutely beyond doubt. Chapter 348 Industrial Titan. Oh my god, it's the Industrial Titan. Just as everyone was shocked, Li Yanli on the side suddenly screamed. As a mechanical fan, his ideal before the disaster was to become a driver of construction machinery, so he was naturally familiar with the huge monster in front of him. It is the Industrial Titan. Others showed expressions of sudden enlightenment. The Industrial Titan is very famous. Anyone who was born before the disaster should have heard of it. The so-called Industrial Titan is actually a giant multi-purpose robot built by the industrial power of the world before the disaster. Named Titan. It can independently and automatically complete various giant projects such as moving mountains, filling the sea, building dams, polar geological surveys, deep-sea mining, etc. It has set many world records and built countless world wonders. It is called the famous Industrial Titan, which means the greatest creation in the history of industry. It is also an important member of the list of equipment for human interstellar travel. Unfortunately, the advent of the disaster made all this go to waste. The Industrial Titan, which is known as the crystallization of industrial technology, has only produced one. Unexpectedly, it fell into the hands of the Bloody Fortress. Moreover, it can be seen that the Bloody Fortress has made huge modifications to it, with thickened armor, a giant ram, and densely packed turrets on it. The Industrial Titan is armed like a hedgehog. It makes people shudder. This is simply a killing machine for war. The HT-1 power armor is as weak as an ant in front of it. The huge Longhu base is just a larger sand sculpture in front of it. It will break at the touch? Sister Xiaoling, what should we do now? Looking at the more than 100-meter high Industrial Titan, Yuna was a little dumbfounded. They simply don't have weapons powerful enough to cause damage to the big guy in front of them. With such a huge size, even if you don't open fire, it will probably take 10 days or half a month to dismantle it. By then, let alone fighting, the Longu base would have been flattened. In front of the huge, everything became an illusion. Zhang Ling was also dumbfounded. She had no weapon to fight against it. The only way out now was to evacuate. But in that case, Longu base would be destroyed, and a large number of survivors would be killed or captured by the Blood Fortress. Then, all the efforts made before would be wasted. This was definitely not the result Su Wei wanted to see. Let's seize the control room, there is no other way, Ma Xiaoyu suggested. As long as we break into the control room of Industrial Titan, we can win this war. But you can tell with your toes that the enemy will definitely defend it tightly. Not to mention whether it can succeed, it will be too late in terms of time. By then, Longu base will have been destroyed. Boom. 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 In a flash, Industrial Titan walked over with firm steps. Getting closer and closer. Even the city walls began to tremble slightly. Industrial Titan adopts a six-legged chassis design, which can adapt to all terrains while providing sufficient stability. The upper body is a humanoid structure with multiple retractable mechanical arms, which can be transformed into a thousand-handed guanyin. A huge ram was installed from the chest to the abdomen. It was so huge that no building could withstand it. The disc-shaped head looked like a straw hat. But the numerous monitors on it gave it an all-round view without blind spots. The cab should be at the head. The turrets there were the most densely packed. But it was difficult, really difficult. After looking at it for a long time, Zhang Ling was unable to make a decision. Ma Xiaoyu, do you think you can go against the Blood Fortress by finding a backer? I'm telling you, that's wishful thinking. Those who dare to disobey the Blood Fortresses will surely end up miserably. Just watch, watch, I'm going to crush the Longu base to the ground. A huge shadow was projected on the Industrial Titan, and it was Zhu Rui who had fled before. At that time, he had already reached the point of throwing away his armor. But now, he changed into a bright general-level uniform, and held a crystal-clear goblet in his hand, which was filled with scarlet red wine. This is more than pretending, it's quite big. Sister, I support you, come on. Support him, we'll lose the battle, not a battle. Ma Xiaoyu, who was standing by, also brought an oversized tweeter from somewhere and put it in front of Ma Xiaoyu. Ma Xiaoyu's silver teeth were almost broken. I support you. The conspicuous big speaker immediately attracted everyone's attention. But Ma Xiaoyu didn't speak for a long time. What the hell? In this situation, speaking is just a pretense? Sister, hurry up and support him. Seeing that Ma Xiaoyu didn't speak for a long time, Ma Xiaoyu couldn't help but urge her. It's so hard to carry such a big thing. Get out, Ma Xiaoyu couldn't help but roar. The tweeter immediately transmitted the sound, and the strong sound waves, as if they had substance, shook Zhu Rui's projection like waves. Is this the legendary lion's roar? Boom crackling, bang, the tweeter suddenly exploded, emitting curls of black smoke. Oh my god, sis, when did you evolve the sonic attack? Ma Xiaoyu asked with her back to Ma Xiaoyu, looking shocked. She even broke the tweeter. Get lost, I told you to get lost. Ma Xiaoyu pulled out her fist that had been inserted into the tweeter and shouted at Ma Xiaoyu. It wasn't the tweeter that exploded on its own, but was blown up by her. Zhu Rui's projection was not vibrated by the sound waves, but was a mechanical failure, a normal screen flicker. Everything was just a coincidence. Looking back and seeing Ma Xiaoyu's expression as if she wanted to strangle her to death, Ma Xiaoyu realized that she seemed to have done something bad with good intentions. The best strategy is to run away. I'll run. Ma Xiaoyu immediately ran away with a tweeter that was emitting black smoke. Puff. Yuna held back her laughter. Some people also laughed. The dull atmosphere was broken, and the oppressive feeling brought by the armed Industrial Titan was diluted. Only Ma Xiaoyu covered her head with her hands, with great embarrassment written all over her face. What a pig-like teammate. OHMPH, Ma Xiaoyu, you will pay a heavy price for your arrogance today. Titan attack. Zhu Rui, who didn't know why, was furious. First, Ma Xiaoyu said get out, and then there was laughter from the crowd. It was hard for him to imagine that when facing the armed Industrial Titan, there were still people who could laugh. Were these people scared silly? But in any case, Zhu Rui felt humiliated and ridiculed. Chapter 349, Attack. Woohoo! As Zhu Rui gave the order to attack, the Industrial Titan made a sound similar to a ship's whistle. All the armed personnel on it were so excited that they cried and howled. The fire controller sitting on the turret excitedly rotated the muzzle, and had an urge to open fire. Ma Xiaoyu, order the base personnel to retreat. Nana, organize special forces to seize the control room. Others, fire support. Zhang Ling finally made a decision. Although she knew that the result was not optimistic, she could not just let it go. Even if she couldn't save Longhu Base, she had to use the Industrial Titan to bury it. Woohoo! This time, the alarm of Longhu Base sounded quickly. Everyone began to execute Zhang Ling's order. All armed personnel gathered at the north gate of Longhu Base. Ordinary survivors evacuated from the south gate. The entire Longhu Base was boiling. Whoosh! The first to open fire was the Sweeper Squadron, a full 100 people. 10,000 swarm rockets covered the Industrial Titan like raindrops. Boom boom boom! The entire Industrial Titan was almost enveloped by the flames of the explosion. The scene was extremely spectacular. However, the brilliance of the flames was short-lived and soon disappeared. The mighty and domineering Industrial Titan was only slightly blackened. The powerful power gave it unmatched armor, and even the turret armor on it was outrageously thick. The Sweeper's volley caused minimal damage to it. Only a few unlucky guys who didn't have time to dodge were directly killed. There were also a few who didn't hold on tightly in the explosion and accidentally fell off the Titan. The ending is obvious: either they fell to death directly or were trampled to death by the Industrial Titan. Bang bang bang! At this time, the assaulters rushed up and the machine guns in their hands began to work. With the help of the speed of the thrusters, they fired around the Industrial Titan like wasps. Although the damage to it was limited, it could attract the attention of those turrets to the maximum extent. As for the Guardians and Fire Demons, they belonged to melee arms, so they stayed in the position to protect the safety of the Sweepers. At the same time, the order of evacuation of ordinary survivors in Longhu Base was maintained. Under the threat of death, it is inevitable that some people will do extreme behaviors. Boom boom! The turrets on the Industrial Titans also began to roar. Since most of them are large-caliber heavy artillery, they are a great threat to the attackers. Fortunately, their task is only to track the opponent's firepower, and they don't need to fight too hard. But despite this, after a round of shelling, several attackers were hit by flying shells and lost their combat effectiveness. The team members took turns to cover, carrying the wounded off the battlefield and handing them over to the logistics who were waiting on the side to rescue the dead and the wounded. In the melee, gray-white shadows interspersed among them, appearing and disappearing. They are snipers codenamed Menge. The super-powered electromagnetic sniper rifles in their hands can penetrate the side armor of the turret, thereby attacking the fire control operator inside. But Menge armor is not easy to manufacture and the number is not large. In addition, the protective ability of this set of armor is weak. Not to mention artillery shells, even heavy machine guns can cause damage to it. Therefore, in this chaotic battle, the ghosts must be very careful and keep a safe distance to fight. Otherwise, a stray bullet may make them scrapped. Therefore, although the ghosts can cause effective damage, they are ordered not to approach easily. The real main attack is the Phaeton Special Forces led by Zhang Ling, with more than 100 people. They rushed to the Industrial Titan with the firepower coverage of the Sweepers. Under the firepower cover of the assaulters, they boarded the Industrial Titan. Then, they rushed straight up. The guards stationed on the Industrial Titan immediately rushed up to intercept everyone. The fierce hand-to-hand combat kicked off. Zhang Ling and others were under unprecedented pressure. No wonder they didn't encounter any decent opponents in the previous attack. It turned out that Zurui concentrated all the strong men here. Among them, there are shadows of 5-star evolvers, who are in a close fight with Zhang Ling and others. Roar! In the melee, a group of wolf cavalrymen came out. There were only more than 10 people, and the leader was Ma Xiaoyu, the queen of Longhu Base. They ignored the rain of bullets and rushed straight to the Industrial Titan, and joined Zhang Ling and others. "Why are you here?" Zhang Ling asked while fighting. "Everything is arranged, of course I have to come to help." Ma Xiaoyu chopped a 3-star evolver with a knife and took a step forward. Yet, Zhang Ling didn't say anything else. She kept switching between the dagger and the sniper rifle in her hand. Ordinary evolvers couldn't resist at all. The original 5-star evolver was also beaten back by the joint efforts of Zhang Ling and Ma Xiaoyu. It was not until another 5-star evolver came that the battle situation was stabilized. But at this time, Zhang Ling and others had already rushed to the torso, not far from the head. "Humph, don't know what's going on, go full throttle, rush up for me." In the control room, Zurui sat in the middle seat, looking at the surveillance screen, and shouted with a ferocious face. Although the war was raging everywhere, he was not worried at all. The Industrial Titan was famous for its durability. The control room had been specially reinforced, and the door was made of a 1-meter thick alloy. It was impossible to open it by manpower. Moreover, the main brain and energy core of the Industrial Titan were under the protection of the control room, leaving no chance for the enemy. As long as these two were not damaged, the Industrial Titan would never stop attacking. Yes, Commander, the driving team of dozens of people entered their own commands one after another, and the Industrial Titan immediately issued a whistle-like roar. Then, the speed of the Industrial Titan gradually increased, and dozens of mechanical arms began to wave, slapping the attackers flying in the air. The huge mechanical arms would kill or injure those who were hit. The battle was in full swing and extremely stalemate, but the Phaeton Expeditionary Force could not stop the Industrial Titan. They could not even slow down the opponent. The Industrial Titan, a true Titan, still took firm steps towards the Longhu base under the attack of thousands of artillery fire. In a blink of an eye, there was only 1 or 2 kilometers left. At its speed, it would take less than 3 minutes to cross. Wait, Yuna seemed to be missing from the battle. It turned out that she was still on the city wall. It was not that she was afraid of fighting, but Zhang Ling gave her another task. Because she had an elemental body and was immune to physical damage, Zhang Ling asked her to seize the opportunity to break through from high altitude and take down the opponent's control room in one fell swoop. So, she has been waiting. At this moment, the survivors in the base who had not yet evacuated could already see the huge figure of the Industrial Titan, and were immediately frightened beyond measure. Panic spread further in everyone's hearts. If it were not for the guards and the fire demons to participate in maintaining order, ordinary armed personnel would probably not be able to suppress it. But despite this, riots inevitably occurred at the south gate. Every survivor wanted to jump out as soon as possible. Although there were threats in the wilderness, it was better than facing this huge mechanical monster that human power could not resist at all. At least, there was still a glimmer of hope. Therefore, the city gate was blocked by the crowded crowd, and it was difficult for anyone to get out. Chapter 350 Flame Cannonball. No, we can't wait any longer, Yuna said to herself as she looked at the Industrial Titan that was already within reach. The panic at the city gate did not attract her attention. Even if she saw it now, she would not have time to pay attention. Those who seek death do not deserve sympathy. Whether they can survive depends on their own luck. As she spoke, Yuna activated a special device of the armor. The armor on her body began to deform. Several sharp metals extended from her feet and directly pierced into the floor of the city wall, firmly fixing the body. The armor and the main body separated and transformed into the shape of a projectile. Yuna, who was wearing a combat uniform, squatted on it, aimed her eyes at the head of the oncoming Industrial Titan, and then gave the order to launch. Whoosh! The catapult transformed by the armor instantly ejected Yuna like a cannonball. Boom! After accelerating, Yuna instantly turned into a ball of fire and flew towards the head of the Industrial Titan. Quick, intercept! The turrets that discovered the abnormality turned to the flying flames and fired shells frantically, intending to disperse the fireball with dense shells. However, Yuna's speed at this time was very fast, comparable to a shell, and the shells fired later could not catch up with her at all. Even if a few shells hit by chance, the shells would directly pass through the flames and explode hundreds of meters behind her, completely hitting her in vain. As the fireball approached, the close-in defense guns on the Industrial Titan began to fire frantically. But the result was still the same. The warhead passed through the flames, flew into the sky, and hit her in vain again. In this way, Yuna successfully passed through the fire blockade and came directly to the vicinity of the head disc buzz. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. A layer of light blue light curtain suddenly appeared, wrapping the entire head inside. Bang! Yuna, the elemental body, immediately hit it, then slid down the light curtain and fell heavily on a platform. The violent shock made her almost vomit blood. The flames on his body also went out, and he returned to his original form wearing Spider-Man's clothes. Force field shield. The Blood Fortress actually installed a force field shield on it, making the Industrial Titan's defense even more amazing. Quick! Catch her! A group of guards found the semi-conscious Yuna and rushed to the platform. It was obvious that the opponent's level was not low, and she was also a rare beauty. If they could capture her and present her to young Master Ying, it would definitely be a great achievement. In the Blood Fortress, Everyone knew that young Master Ying's biggest hobby was collecting beauties. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to such great lengths to negotiate with a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and would have just pushed him down. Nana, Nana, Zhang Ling shouted anxiously, trying to wake up the semi-conscious Yuna. She was entangled by a 5-star evolver and couldn't get away. Even if she could get away, she was still a long way behind in terms of distance. The others also had their own opponents, and the fight was difficult to resolve. It happened to be separated from the middle by the guards of the Blood Fortress. "He, little beauty, you brought this upon yourself, don't blame me." The first blood guard who rushed over stretched out his hand and grabbed Yuna's hand. Boom. At this moment, Yuna gritted her teeth to wake herself up, activated her supernatural power, and instantly turned into a ball of fire. The blood guard who stretched out his hand was instantly engulfed by the flames and let out a miserable wail. Unfortunately, Yuna would not have the slightest mercy on him. The flames continued to erupt, burning him into charcoal. "Fuck, elemental body, quickly retreat." The blood guards who had rushed up to pick up a big bargain were instantly scared to death. Elemental body. Physical attacks are ineffective. And they happen to be evolvers of the strength and agility systems. Wouldn't they stay and eat barbecue if they didn't run away? But, could they run away? The speed of the flames can basically catch up with the speed of the agility system, not to mention the strength system. How happy they were before, how much regret they have in their hearts now. Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in the world. Then, a series of screams rang out. Those bloody guards instantly turned into black charcoal statues, still maintaining the posture before death, giving people a weird and terrifying visual impact. In the end, 2 4-star water evolvers stopped Yuna's steps. The battle was deadlocked again. At this time, the industrial titan had come to the wall of Longhu base. A huge mechanical leg slowly raised and stepped on the dozens of meters high wall. This kick would definitely collapse half of it. Although Zhang Ling and others saw it, they were powerless to stop it. They could only vent their hatred on their opponents. Among them, Ma Xiaoyu was the craziest. With an alloy sword and an alloy dagger, she killed quickly. Longhu is her hard work and her family's wealth. How could she not be crazy when she was trampled like this? Bang! At this time, a huge alloy sword fell from the sky. With a tricky angle, it hit the mechanical giant leg raised by the industrial titan, making a deafening sound. The alloy giant sword hit the giant mechanical leg, and the huge inertia immediately broke the giant leg, and it fell to the ground with a bang, shaking the earth. The battlefield seemed to have pressed the pause button. The bloody army all looked incredible. What could actually cut off a leg of the titan in their hearts? On the other hand, after a brief surprise, the Phaeton Expeditionary Force suddenly burst into roars of surprise. Black Phoenix! It's the Black Phoenix mecha. Sure enough, a moment later, a powerful mecha with a black main body descended from the clouds. Although compared with the Titan, the Black Phoenix looks a little thin, but there is an essential difference between the two. One is born for labor, and the other is born for fighting. The moment Zhang Ling and Yuna saw the Black Phoenix, they unconsciously showed a happy smile on their faces. Although Ma Xiaoyu, who was standing aside, had never seen the Black Phoenix, she was immediately happy when she saw Zhang Ling's expression. Because this iceberg beauty would only smile for that man. Damn. Mecha. Combat type. This time, not only the soldiers of the Scarlet Fortress were shocked, but even Zurui in the control room jumped up from his seat. How could you be so unlucky? The Bone Crusher was restrained by HT1, and now even the trump card Industrial Titan in his hand encountered a combat mecha. Who can he go to for justice? At the same time, the Black Phoenix was in midair, casting a huge black shadow, which made the crowded survivors in the Longhu base quiet down. The logo of the Phaeton base was sprayed on the Black Phoenix, which was exactly the same as the logo on the Guardian and the Flame Demon beside it. No matter how stupid, you know that reinforcements have arrived. Suddenly, you see the hope of victory and despair. Mecha. Even before the catastrophe, it was a top-level combat force. Looking at the Black Phoenix now, after a new upgrade, it is even more fierce, and maybe it can really defeat that ugly big guy. At this moment, the survivors couldn't help crying with joy, and their cries went straight to the sky. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.